coverage. Post that. To make sure it's actually working. And welcome inside, everybody, as we get things going here for the 2026 NFL draft as we kind of just hang out here. Again, my name is Brendan, and welcome to One IQ Sports Talk. Again, we do this every single year where we will be covering the first and second days of the NFL draft, and we will be going pick by pick. If this is your first time hanging out with us here for the NFL draft, I appreciate it. And yeah, it is going to be an absolute boatload of fun to come in and do this again. Obviously, the draft will officially start here in about 45 minutes. So, pretty much the way that I'm looking at it is that we got 45 minutes to do a quick first round mock draft. And kind of what you're seeing on screen right here is exactly what you're going to see during the actual NFL draft process. I'm using PFSN's mock draft website. I think they do a really, really good job with the things that they do. And yeah, so pretty much if we have trades, I'm going to kind of go through and actually get those trades done. But before we get to that, yeah, let's quickly kind of talk through and go through this draft process here at the moment. And yeah, let's kick things off. Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders. This, let's be honest here, this is not going to be a shock whatsoever. Raiders need a quarterback. He is the best quarterback, hands down, in this NFL draft. It is very, very easy of a decision. This pick has been made pretty much since the national championship game in college football. There really isn't too much to, I would say, either really sit back and worry about. Like, to me, this is just such a no-brainer pick, and I think everyone kind of already knows that this is the pick. I think the NFL has known for a while what's essentially going to happen tonight is the draft is going to go, and you're going to see the Raiders wait for about 5 minutes, and then the pick is going to be made because the NFL likely has told the Raiders wait 5 minutes to at least give some level of suspense. And yeah, that's going to be the pick. I think this is a really, really solid option. Jared Goff, Fernando Mendoza reminds me a lot of Jared Goff in terms of his play style. I think that's kind of his caliber of a quarterback. I know a lot of people have said Matt Ryan. I can see that really a lot as well in this particular pick. There's not really a whole lot of reason to dive too deep into this pick because once it happens, we will talk about it a lot come actual draft time. But yeah, this to me is just such an easy pick to make. New York Jets, this is going to be an interesting spot here because we know that they are going to be taking an edge rusher here at this stage. I would be unbelievably shocked, and I think we would all be shocked to see them take someone else here. And that pretty much leaves us to the point of which one of these two guys in either David Bailey or Arvell Reese is going to ultimately be the draft pick. With Arvell Reese, you have someone who has such a high upside. You just don't really know what you're potentially going to be getting out of him because potentially, well, I hate to use the word again, but his potential is kind of limitless. He reminds me a ton of what we saw out of Micah Parsons coming out of college, where it was this guy was a middle linebacker that started to get reps at edge rusher and really, really showed out and started to take that next step and develop. And now Micah Parsons is one of the best defensive players in football. I'm not going to put the pressure on Arvel Reese to be that sort of guy, mainly because Arvel Reese also has a lot less pass rush just attempts at college. I think he only had 99 at the collegiate level. So, I'm not going to put that pressure onto him. But the fact, if he is just like the hybrid guy of where he's splitting time as doing linebacker and edge rushing, you're getting a hell of a player. But I also think that the Jets want a true pass rusher, someone that is just going to sit down and kind of go after it and not really have to worry. And I think that's David Bailey. I think the Jets are 100% going to go with David Bailey here. It just makes too much sense. And the reason why I think David Bailey just makes too much sense is because he is the best pure edge rusher here in this class. It, to me, isn't even really much of a question. He's the best edge rusher here in this class by a pretty wide margin. And yeah, the only big downside with David Bailey is I don't think he is as good as a run stuffer as you would want from an edge rusher this high in the draft, because I think just being a little bit more of that one trick pony, I still think David Bailey has the potential to be a good run stuffer. He just needs time to develop that game here in the NFL. And even if he doesn't get to that, this is a guy that you could easily project being a double-digit sack guy for his entire career. And if you're the Jets, that's exactly what you're hoping for. That's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you need. And yeah, you're not going to be upset with David Bailey going there. I think the risk is a lot limited, a lot less in that department as well. Next up here is the Arizona Cardinals, and from what we are hearing the entire time is the Cardinals, they're going to be trading back, and I think the team that they're ultimately going to be trading with is the Dallas Cowboys. So I think they're going to be swapping right there. What else could they potentially give? Looking at this, could we potentially see them go 12 and 20? I kind of think that would make a lot of sense. Basically just say, hey, this is what we're preparing to give. We'll want something a little bit more back in this. Getting the first pick in the third round would the Dallas Cowboys be getting, but this gives them the opportunity here. Trade is accepted. Cowboys, they go after Arvel Reese. I could potentially see them going after Sonny Styles in that mode, but I think they just look at Arvel Reese and go, you know what, we had Micah Parsons there for 4 good, or it might have been 5 good years. Why don't we get someone that in an archetype, how we already know how to develop them? This would be a really, really interesting choice for the Cowboys to do, but this is a team that needs defense. They need a really, really good linebacker, and they need a really, really good edge rusher. This kind of fits into the best of both worlds for them. And again, if he's going to be a better linebacker in college, or pardon me, in the NFL, that's not going to be an issue. But he could also just basically be the Micah Parsons clone that we potentially think he could be. This is going to be a really, really interesting pick in how they develop him, but it's one that I think the Cowboys are ultimately going to do here. Next up here is the Tennessee Titans, and this is just one of those weird spots where the edge rushers are gone. I don't think they're going to go with Ruben Bain. I could see them go with Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Love, or Sonny Styles. It's basically one of those 3 guys, in my opinion. There's just something telling me that it's going to be Sonny Styles here at this point in today, today on draft day. Sonny Styles to me just feels like he's gonna go to the Tennessee Titans, and you're gonna see Robert Saleh, obviously the new head coach of the Titans, basically just say, hey man, you give me like a Fred Warner type player. And a lot of people are talking about Sonny Styles being like a Fred Warner level player, and again, makes a ton of sense schematically. I don't necessarily agree with this pick, but it's one that I think that they will ultimately make. Next up here is the New York Football Giants. And this is going to be a little bit of an off the board selection here. They're going to go with Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. Carnell Tate not going to be the first wide receiver selected here in this year's draft. Listen, I think Carnell Tate is the safer pick at this point in the draft. I think just from across the board, he is a safe player. He's never been a number one receiver, but then again, he's also never had to be a number one receiver, having Marvin Harrison Jr. playing with him, having Jeremiah Smith play with him, and both of those guys being true number one wide receivers for Ohio State. But again, you just look at some of the other guys that have been on that Ohio State wide receiver room. Emeka Egbuka was another great example of that last year, where this guy was kind of that number one receiver for that team. Jordan Tyson, you also look at him and go, when he is on the field, he plays almost like a discount Jamar Chase. When just watching him play, he gives a lot of those similar vibes. The problem with Jordan Tyson is his inability to stay healthy. And that is going to hurt him a ton. But I also think teams are just going to say, like, the Giants have also done a ton of homework on Jordan Tyson, and apparently they are absolutely in love with this kid. And I think with them also having pick 10, this makes them feel just a little bit more comfortable in saying, hey, this is a guy that we really want, this is a guy that we really like, and this is just kind of where we're going to feel comfortable with. I think you're going to be a little bit shocked with how high Jordan Tyson is going to go, and I'm going to say, don't be shocked when this pick is ultimately made. Next up here is the Cleveland Browns, and this is another team that I think we're going to see trading back here in the draft. I'm just kind of like looking at what could potentially happen here. It is kind of a little bit interesting. You know what? I think a team that could potentially try and trade up at this spot is maybe the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, we'll have to think about that. Obviously, the Cowboys have kind of already made that big jump up to grab someone like Arvell Reese. Do I feel like maybe the Rams want to try to trade up? You know, Miami. Yeah, I think we'll go with the Chiefs here. Again, just kind of doing this on the fly. It's, again, having them move back here. This is the Chiefs kind of just moving up to guarantee themselves, you know, the guy that they potentially want. That's going to be Rueben Bain Jr. I think this is a big risk for the Chiefs. And the reason why I say they're going to ultimately try to make this trade up is because, again, they're still going to have the additional first-round pick that they got from the Rams in that later trade. But you look at a team like Washington, like the Saints, you can't say that both of those two teams won't be extremely interested in Rueben Bain Jr. And this is kind of the Chiefs going, you know what, if we have to give up a little bit of a later pick, and we just see right here, you're only giving up, you know, your second rounder to move up to guarantee the guy that you really want. And, you know, you pair him beside Chris Jones, you have George Karlaftis on the other side as an edge rusher. That starts to make the defense look that little bit better, and we know that's what this Chiefs team wants. And you're not giving up that additional first round pick that you have, so you can do so much with that. At this point, if this is the way that the NFL draft has ultimately happened, Carnell Tate on the board for Washington, they are sprinting up to the podium to get Carnell Tate. When you look at this Washington offense, you have a very much aging Terry McLaurin. And if you don't have Terry McLaurin, you don't really have anyone. And frankly, at this point, I would say it's still kind of wishy-washy if Terry McLaurin is still that guy. You need to give Jayden Daniels help. You need defensive help. Yes, I understand that. You would have loved a guy like Ruben Bain to be there. You would have also liked to have a guy like Arvel Reese, Sonny Styles, or even David Bailey. But this one just makes too much sense. You need to go up there and you need to give your young quarterback some pieces to work with, just because you need to know if he's going to be the guy, having that great rookie season but then having a disaster of a sophomore season. You need to know if he is going to pan out. Now, I don't think they're going to, kick the tire on Jayden Daniels after just kind of one injury riddled and kind of just poor season. But ultimately, you know what I mean? Like, they need weapons. And having new offensive coordinator coming in there as well, this is also going to be a situation of where it is just going to be get your young quarterback some help. New Orleans Saints here on the board. And again, this is kind of that little bit of a shock right now that Jeremiah Love is still here on the board. I sit back and I say they're gonna take him here. They look at this, and obviously they sign Travis Etienne this offseason as a running back, but you get Jeremiah Love into that offense. This is just a match made in heaven for what the Saints really want. Again, why not potentially have that? Jeremiah Love could be a player that you could see the Chiefs ultimately at that 6th spot potentially try to go up and grab. But I think this is a really, really solid pickup for them. Next up here is the Cleveland Browns after trading back. I think this is going to be not necessarily, too much of a shock. I think it's going to be Monroe Freeling. This is a Browns team that has a lot of holes on the offensive line. When you have that many holes on the offensive line, you need to fill them here in the draft. You have 2 first-round picks. You've already added an additional second-round pick in the top 40. So this just makes it really easy. Monroe Freeling, again, not necessarily the most experienced tackle here in this class, but he just feels like he's the safest option and someone that's just going to be a solid player from top to bottom. Giants now back on this, and they sprint to the podium to select Caleb Downs. This is just an easy decision for me, where this is the perfect scenario for the Giants. Jordan Tyson at pick number 5. They have Caleb Downs falling to them at pick number 10. This is a home run draft for the Giants. You can't have it be any better. It is physically not possible for them to have it be any better here at this moment. Miami Dolphins here up on the board. This is where this becomes a really, really interesting spot here in the draft at pick number 11, because let's be honest here, the Dolphins kind of need everything. And as I'm sitting back and thinking about it, it is going to be one of those things. I'm sorry, I'm just reading some breaking news. Obviously, Mike Vrabel is having some of his conversations surrounding kind of some of the stuff that's happening in his life. We're not necessarily going to worry too much about that, but going back to the Dolphins, you kind of need everything. Obviously you signed a quarterback this offseason. You have no help in the wide receiver room. There's a ton of options. I just think if you are a team like the Dolphins right now, if you're in this rebuilding stage, you can't go with small players. And what I mean by small players is wide receivers, corners, pretty much as my headset ends up turning off on that occasion. But you can't have guys, in my opinion, that just don't improve your team immensely. Again, especially with a top 15 pick. I think right now, Francis Mauigoa, right here for Miami, keep him in Miami. Get yourself a really, really solid tackle and just kind of build out that unit just that little bit more. You need some more help there, so go out there and get that help. Arizona Cardinals now back up on the board after making that trade with the Dallas Cowboys. This is another spot of where they can go, and I think a guy like Spencer Fano, again, this is another team that just looks kind of similar to the Browns after trading back, getting the player that they essentially want at this time period. Yeah, you need offensive line help, and with how bad this Cardinals team is, you kind of just know here at the moment that like it is kind of what it is at this spot of, all right, like you need help on the old line. You're not going to be that great. Again, don't go small, go big. Yes. Okay. But next up here is the Los Angeles Rams. I think this is going to be a fairly unsurprising pick. I think it's going to be Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. Carson Beck going first overall. As much as I would love to agree with you there, bud, I don't think he is going to go first overall. First round, I don't think that's actually going to be out of the question. You'll see here in this mock what I might potentially do with Carson Beck potentially being in that area code. But back to the Rams, Makai Lemon. This is a team that is all in mode. Well, I know you being a Seahawks fan, not much liking of the LA Rams, but this is a year where they're saying we have Matthew Stafford on the last year of his deal. This might be the last year of Sean McVay with the Rams. We're going to go all out. You have Puka Nacua, you have Devontae Adams, you get Makai Lemon, and really just bolster this unit and just take it to another level. Baltimore Ravens up here on the clock. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. He ended up losing Isaiah Likely this offseason to free agency. He went over to the Giants, pretty much just following John Harbaugh. And you have the opportunity to essentially get Mark Andrews' future replacement. You have a new offensive coordinator there in Baltimore who worked really, really well with a top 10 pick tight end last year in Colston Loveland. You're going to have that new philosophy of that Ben Johnson offense in Baltimore. Tight end is so very important, and I think they're going to be pounding the table, say, let's give Lamar Jackson a uber athletic tight end prospect to ultimately work with. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is a team that I could potentially see trading back here at this stage of the draft. I just don't fully know kind of where or which team potentially I would try to get them to trade back with. I think this could be the area code of a Pittsburgh Steelers, as I definitely hit the wrong button there. And you know what? I actually think I am going to do the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, the draft being in Pittsburgh, where the Buckies here. There they are. So right there, do that. Give one of their third round picks away, and boom, boom, boom. Trade is accepted. Why would the Pittsburgh Steelers be trading up at this point in the draft? I think it's kind of obvious that they're going to want to go offensive line here. And I think Vega Ioana, the guard out of Penn State, this is someone that they have been very much in talks with, and someone that has shown a lot, or the Steelers have shown a lot of interest in. I don't think quarterback is necessarily kind of the area code that they're going to be going down here at the moment. I just think this is going to be a relatively solid trade up. It's not super sexy. I don't think it's going to get the people of Pittsburgh jumping for joy, because it's not sexy, because O-line isn't ever really sexy, but it makes sense to me that they would kind of do this. New York Jets here at the moment. I think right now, if you are the New York Jets, seeing that the way the board has ultimately fallen, you have two premier corners still at the top of the board. And this was a team that had no interceptions last year. Obviously, they went out and signed a handful of corners to try to get that to ultimately change. I think Aaron Glenn, he looks at Mansour Delane and goes, I would love to have a wide receiver here. If a guy like Mekhi Lemon or even Jordan Tyson was still there, this would make a ton of sense. But Mansour Delane, he was just such a consistent corner throughout this year's draft that it just makes a ton of sense that you get someone that can actually get some picks. And, if you're Aaron Glenn, being the former corner, being this defensive minded coach, you kind of need some of that stuff to ultimately give you that little bit of boost and potentially try to save your job this year. Detroit Lions up here on the board. I think they're taking Caden Proctor. I think the size, the mobility, just the athleticism, and just the raw talent that he still kind of has here at the moment, that's gonna fire this Lions team up here at the moment. Again, when you're 6'7", 350 pounds or 350 plus pounds, and Alabama was getting you to line up as a receiver, catching passes, and then actually running with those passes, like they were setting up screenplays for Caden Proctor. He is so athletic. He needs to keep his weight under control because he can get a tendency to get a little bit bigger. I know some people say he's just going to be playing himself into shape. We'll see how that ultimately goes. But Lions need offensive line help. That's kind of where they're going to need Dylan Thieneman. This is just the pick that I think everyone kind of knows is going to happen here at the moment. Vikings, they just lost Harrison Smith. Dylan Thieneman, out of Oregon, safety, is basically Harrison Smith reincarnated. Again, it just makes a ton of sense for the Vikings. He's versatile. He's rangy. He's basically like a center fielder. I know, Will, you're gonna kind of like this comment. He's a center fielder that goes up and hits people, is essentially what he does. Carolina Panthers, this is an interesting spot here because I can see them potentially going after a guy like a wide receiver just to add that little bit of depth. If Kenyon Sadiq was still here, they might try to look in that area code. Could potentially look to try to add a little bit more help on the defensive side of things. I know safety, D-tackle could potentially be areas. I don't think Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is going to quite be at this spot. I think he's probably potentially just a little too far back for their liking. I could very much be wrong in that department, but I think just looking at this, they might go Caleb Lomu just to ultimately solidify that offensive line. You need to give Bryce Young the best chance that you possibly can, because if you just allow him to continue to get beat up, and if he gets injured or he panics, go out and get more offensive line help, whether Lomu plays guard, whether he plays tackle. Again, not a super sexy pick, but you're helping out your young quarterback. The Cardinals are now back up on the clock here. Again, we got them a tackle. I'm actually going to have them selecting Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher out of Auburn. I am not the world's biggest fan of Keldrick Falk. I think his potential is very high, but I also think for him to get to his potential, he has to climb like a sheer cliff, I should say. His ability to just not get after the passer as an edge rusher is something that deeply, deeply concerns me. And there's going to be a team that bites on him here in the first round. I think it could potentially be the Cardinals looking for someone to just kind of be that super athletic edge rusher that they can grow. I am more than happy to be wrong about Keldrick Falk, and I'll sit back and I'll say, you know what? I'll let someone else be the smartest man in the room when picking this guy. Buccaneers back up here on the board. I think a guy like Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher out of Miami, who played the opposite side of Ruben Bain, this could be a really, really sexy kind of looking pick here for the Bucks. This is one of those guys where they just need defensive help. Mesidor, he's going to be 25 when the season starts. He's a good old Canadian boy. He is going to produce right away. The problem is his ceiling probably isn't as high as most people would like it to be. When his next contract comes around, he's going to be 30 years old, and that is going to be a concern for some people. Is it much of a concern for me? Not really. I think he's just a really, really good player, and the Bucks are going to be super, super jacked up to get this guy. Coming up here at this stage in the draft, I don't think you're going to be too shocked to see this guy go in the first round. I just need to find him on the board. Oh, there he is, Chris Pazantis, the guard out of Texas A&M, especially going to a team like the Chargers. They need guard help. If they don't have guard help, they are going to struggle. You just need to give Justin Herbert protection. Obviously, you didn't have Joe Alt there. You didn't have Rashawn Slater. It was really, really tough for them to kind of get anything going. And then when they lost both of those guys, their interior was a disaster. Getting both of those two guys back, but then also getting Chase Pazantis, it gives your young quarterback, or I guess you shouldn't necessarily say young quarterback, but it gives your superstar quarterback that protection he's kind of been missing, essentially. Philadelphia Eagles here on the board. I'm going to go with Blake Miller here. And this is just me looking at Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy that drafts a year ahead before a problem becomes a problem. And we all know Lane Johnson is in the back nine of his career, and he's closer to hole 18 than he is to hole 10. Blake Miller is, without a doubt, a right tackle in the NFL. He played right tackle at Clemson. That's kind of what he's known, what he's kind of done throughout these last few years. This is just such a smart pick for the Eagles. They don't have to trade up. I think they're a team in the Eagles that is potential to trade up here today in the first round to potentially go after a tackle. I just think this is a really, really smart move for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cleveland Browns back up here on the board. Looking at this one, I think they go Casey Concepcion. Obviously, we got them here with pick 9, Monroe Freeling. They need wide receiver help. As badly as they need offensive line help, I actually truly think that if the Browns had one really decent wide, or like one more really good wide receiver, they would go with another extra O lineman. But since they really don't have that player there on the board, this is kind of where they need to go. They need to add offensive firepower for whoever the hell their quarterback is going to be. I don't think they're going to be drafting a QB here in round 1. You drafted Dylan Gabriel last year. You drafted Shedeur Sanders last year. You still have Deshaun Watson on the roster, and he's going to be fighting for playing time. You kind of have to know those two things. Chicago Bears, my Chicago Bears, I'm having them trade back. They kind of need to make this trade back, and I think they're going to be giving up the 34th pick, and let's just say maybe like a 3rd and 104, which kind of ultimately move back up into the first round to get that pick from the Chicago Bears. And boom, that is going to cause them to get Ty Simpson and make it just that much smoother, that much better. Buffalo Bills here at this point in the draft. But again, going back to the Cardinals, this gives them 3 first-round picks. It gives them a offensive lineman that they desperately need. It gives them an edge rusher that can help them out in the future. But it also gives them their QB of the future. And it just puts them in a really good spot and says, you know what? This is where our rebuild is. You're not giving up a first-round pick or a second-round pick in next year's draft, which are still going to be premium picks, but you are giving up a third-round pick. I think this one is smooth. Taking a look here, I think Omar Cooper Jr. to the Buffalo Bills is a team that I could see just adding that little bit more of firepower. Max Ionanker, I have no idea how to say this guy's last name, but this is just simply them preparing for the future of no longer having Trent Williams. Just looking at this, what could I potentially see? Could I, because I do think the Texans, with the way that the board has ultimately fallen, who could I see potentially trading up here at this spot? Ooh. Miami, and where the Texans, right there, go with this, that, and get pick 90, boom, done. And Will, if you're still watching, buddy, this is where I have Carson Beck. There's been rumors these last few days that the Dolphins are potentially, or someone's going to try to move up a little bit more to get Carson Beck. I think the Dolphins just kind of going from 28 to 30, potentially not allowing another team to steal him away, just kind of solidifying things and getting things settled. I think the Chiefs right now, they're looking at Gerard McCoy, the corner out of Tennessee, and saying, thank you very much. We are happy to take this kid and really just roll with the punches and say, you know what? We lost 2 of our best corners. We're just going to draft someone who arguably has top 10 potential here in this year's draft. But the problem is he has injury history and he still might have to have another surgery coming up here this season. That's the reason why he drops. But if he's healthy, he's a top 10 pick, top 5 potentially worthy, going to the Chiefs at pick 29. Taking a look here with the Texans now back on the clock, trading, a little bit back here in this draft. I think they're just going to say, screw it. There's no offensive lineman here that's really worth this spot. We're going with the philosophy of, if we can't score, neither can you. I love the idea of Chris Johnson, the corner out of San Diego State. I think he has been kind of slept on throughout this entire draft process. I think he's going to be someone that is actually like a little bit of a sneaky first rounder that is just going to be really, really good. And this is a move that I think the Texans are really going to love. Again, going with that strategy, if we can't score, neither can you. I think he goes ahead of Colton Hood, who I know more people have in that first round range. New England Patriots obviously having some major issues with their current head coach. But looking at the board the way it is, I could see them going with CJ Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. This is pretty much a very Mike Vrabel type pick. I could see that being a really, really solid option for them, just kind of getting that little bit of extra help up the middle. And then finally here, the final pick in the first round, I think the Super Bowl winning Seattle Seahawks are going to select Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame. And that is what I am going to have for this first round mock. And I'm going to have everything loaded up. We're going to keep that one on the back burner just to kind of go back and forth to see ultimately how it's done. But before we get to the actual draft, I'm going to be back here in just a few moments, and then we'll quickly talk about it and get ready for the draft to officially kick off and talk about kind of everything that we are going to see. So I'll be back here in just a moment. And we are back. So this is our official first round mock. We're going to kind of keep this off in the background as we kind of have things going. Just quickly looking through this one, not terribly much of a shock with a bunch of these picks. It might be a shock for some of these picks, but yeah, we're going to kind of use this as a reference point. I'm not going to get all these picks right. I'm probably not even going to get the first 3 picks right. The only pick that I know for certain I will be getting right is Fernando Mendoza, because the pick has already been made. But if you weren't here to watch this last year, I highly recommend you just sticking around. And then after, you don't need to watch last year's, you got it. But the way this will work while we are here for the actual draft is obviously I will be kind of talking live and doing everything with this. But once the pick is in, I will notify you that the picks are made, and I have the draft over on my other monitor here. When it is officially time for the pick to be announced, I will allow the commissioner to walk up to the stage. I will let him play the audio. We will hear it both live together, and we'll kind of talk about it. So the draft will officially kick off at 6 o'clock my time. I don't know wherever it is for you guys, but in the next 2 minutes, the commissioner should be making his way out onto the NFL stage to say that the draft is now officially open. I will try to get him saying that the NFL draft is now open, but we will talk about each of the teams, kind of thinking where I think they should go, some of the players that I think could potentially be good options for each of the clubs, and really just kind of taking you through all the options. Once the player is picked, we'll kind of have that conversation for, 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll start to talk about the next team and what they are potentially going to do, where the board has gone. Very, very simple stuff. If you've watched any NFL draft show or any sports draft show ever, it's very similar preference. Please, highly recommend you comment along. I always love chatting with people in the chat when they come by, asking questions, going, oh, who do you think is going to do this, or that? It's always a very fun process chatting with people. I know we had a few people last year that were very much involved with the process of chatting, and always very, very fun. But yeah, just waiting to get this thing kicked off here. Hopefully everyone is having an excellent Thursday night. But as we wait for the commish, again, my mock draft: Raiders, Mendoza; Jets, David Bailey; Cowboys trade up to select Arvell Reese; the Tennessee Titans select Sonny Styles. No, didn't want that. The New York Giants kind of shocked the NFL world early in this one and take Jordan Tyson. The Chiefs trade up to select Ruben Bain Jr. The Commanders have a option of either going with Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Love. They select Tate. The Saints select Jeremiah Love. The Browns, after trading back, select Monroe Freeling, the guy they would have taken at pick number 6. The Giants continue their excellent draft here in the early stages here, and they get Caleb Downs. The Dolphins go with Francis Maui-Noah. The Cardinals get Spencer Fano. Rams get Makai Lemon. Ravens get Kenyon Sadiq. Steelers, with the draft being in Pittsburgh, trade up to get the crowd excited, to then kind of have it be a little bit, I'm not going to say of a fizzle out, but they select Vega Ioana. The Jets select Mansour Delane. The Lions select Caden Proctor. The Vikings select Dylan Thieneman. The Panthers select Caleb Lamu. The Cardinals back up on the board. The other pick that they received from the Cardinals, from the Cowboys, select Keldrick Falk. Buccaneers, after trading back, select Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher. Then you will have the Chargers selecting Chase Pasantis, the guard out of Texas A&M. The Eagles select Blake Miller. The Browns select Casey Concepcion, wide receiver. The Cardinals trade back up into the first round and select Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. That's going to be a talking point throughout this draft. The Bills select Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. The 49ers select tackle Max out of Arizona State. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name. Carson Beck goes to Miami after Miami makes a quick trade up here in the draft, saying, you know what, we're going to go from pick 30 to pick 28 to solidify the quarterback that we want. The Chiefs, Jermod McCoy, the corner out of Tennessee. Texans select, after trading back, Chris Johnson. The Pats select CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. And then finally, the Seahawks select Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame. And that's where that is. The commissioner is up here at the actual draft stage. He's being booed by the people, as he typically does, in all good fun and sportsmanship. But we are here in Pittsburgh, and let's get things going.
The one of most dominant franchises in history.
Trying to make sure that you can see that. But yeah, just making sure that we could hear that audio. Yeah, commissioner is up there, and I'm taking a drink of water. In my Minnie and Mickey water cup, I should say. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting draft. A draft where I think you have more starters than superstars. Next year's draft, the 2027 draft, is going to, let's just say, have a lot more talent at the superstar positions. Like, I think if you go back and remember that 2014 draft where you had guys like Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, Odell Beckham Jr., you just go back and actually take a look at that one. It is unbelievable the amount of talent that has come out of that draft. But yeah, that is not this draft. That is definitely closer to what the 2027 draft is going to be. But we are just waiting for the commish to say that the 2026 NFL draft is officially open and the Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock. They can be on the clock for pretty much 5 minutes to make there be some suspense, to be some sort of like, okay, here we go. I don't really think that is going to be the case. Everyone kind of knows exactly what's going to happen. It's just a matter of the Raiders making the pick. And while this is going on, I am going to grab myself a slice of pizza, because that is what I have for dinner. Hopefully everyone watching is having themselves a lovely Thursday so far, wherever you are. Just bringing out Terry Bradshaw out onto the stage.
Of stars, we will welcome into the National Football League starting tonight. Pittsburgh, this is a moment you all been waiting for. Yins ready? All right. The 2026 NFL Draft is officially open. The Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock.
And there you have it. The Las Vegas Raiders are officially on the clock. This year, the NFL has mandated that instead of the 10 minutes that it takes to make the pick, it is only going to be 8. So I'm wondering how long it is going to be before they actually submit their pick. You get to see the war room in Las Vegas, what they're going to do. Showing Fernando Mendoza up on the screen, essentially just sitting there waiting for the phone call for him to get the news that he is going to be the first overall pick. Hired Clint Kubiak as their head coach in February, coming over from the Seattle Seahawks as their offensive coordinator. This is not going to be much of a shock to me at where they end up going. Again, just kind of taking a look at this. We are live, everyone, and it's pretty much just going to be a matter of moments until we see that pick officially be drawn in. But yeah, this to me, it has to be Fernando Mendoza. I would be flabbergasted if it wasn't. I know there's been a lot of conversation throughout the weeks leading up to the draft. Guys like Dan Orlovsky saying Ty Simpson is a better quarterback prospect. I can see where a guy like Dan would say that. I don't love the reasons that he ultimately gave for a guy like Fernando Mendoza, or for Ty Simpson to be a better quarterback prospect than Fernando Mendoza. But if you want to make the argument, I without a doubt can see where it's going to be in that argument. But I can't sit back and say that this is going to be anyone other than Mendoza. This is a guy that has the arm strength. He has the professionalism. He reads a defense really, really well. When I look at archetypes for franchise quarterbacks, there are 4 types of archetypes that I identify and sit back and say, that guy is a franchise QB. You have your surgeons. Those guys are very much, or magicians, I should say. Those guys are your Patrick Mahomes, your Caleb Williams, your Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford. Those are guys that just do things with their arm that show up on the highlight reel every single week, every single game, multiple times. Then you have basically your cerebral thinkers. And this is the category that I think the Las Vegas Raiders are getting in Fernando Mendoza, where he's not necessarily the best arm strength. He doesn't have the top arm talent. He doesn't have the fastest mobility, and he isn't such a physical force that he can just run people over. But the thing that he does really, really well is his brain. He's just super smart and reads a defense really, really well, but is also still really good at all of those other things. Doesn't have the crazy arm talent like some of these other guys, but still has good arm talent. Doesn't have the strongest arm, but still has an NFL arm. Isn't fast as a guy like Lamar Jackson, but is fast enough. Is big enough, but not necessarily so massive that he's overwhelming in the sense of what his body is. And when you talk about guys that are cerebral thinkers, you talk about guys like in today's NFL, you see Joe Burrow being that massive, massive archetype for that. You talk about guys like Tom Brady, and you talk about guys like Peyton Manning. Those guys are in that category of cerebral thinkers. This is the category that I think Mendoza goes into. And we're just waiting in, and the pick is officially in for the Raiders. It is just going to be a few mere moments now for us to just hear what we've all known for a matter of months at this point: the Las Vegas Raiders drafting Fernando Mendoza. Now it's just waiting for Kamish to jump up. Now, need to hear, folks, in the chat, if you're watching, who do you think the Raiders are going to take, or do you think it is indeed going to be Fernando Mendoza? war room in Vegas clapping away, and they are stoked, excited. Is Clint Kubiak getting his franchise quarterback? We will just have to wait and see. Oh, I thought the commissioner was coming out there, but he was not. Stream looking good, no dropped frames, everything going perfect. We have been on the air for just about an hour here at this point. Wanted to kick things off at 5 o'clock my time. Ultimately came on about 5:15. But here comes the commissioner to announce the first overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft. And here is the commissioner.
With the first pick in the 2026 NFL draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana.
Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback out of Indiana. Not a shock. Everyone knew this was going to happen. Checking my previous mock draft to sit back and see that, yes, indeed, I was correct in that one. But the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner goes to Vegas to be the new franchise guy, gets to sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year. Now, when you talk about Fernando Mendoza play style, I view him as a Jared Goff, Matt Ryan type of player. But when you talk about him personality-wise, he's very much Kirk Cousins-like. And so with the Raiders ultimately bringing in Kirk Cousins, to me, that really was an amazing move by the Raiders, because they have someone who is a very similar personality-wise, can take the reins over for, you hope, the entire season. Mendoza, I think, while he is the most pro-ready quarterback in this year's class, I still think he needs a little bit of cooking time. I think he needs to get that little bit more experience and learning this NFL offense. There's not much to really say about this one. It is kind of pretty much exactly what we all thought was going to happen. And Raiders get their guy. And he's being interviewed right now, so let's listen in.
How have the last 5 months changed your life?
The last 5 months has been such a blessing by God, and I can't thank him enough. I'm just looking forward to get to work, prove at the next level. College was fantastic. I'm so blessed to have that career, but now I step into a great game of the NFL. Look forward to proving and earning it every single day.
You're going to the Las Vegas Raiders. What excites you the most about this opportunity?
What a great organization, great legacy. There's so many great teammates I'm looking forward to talking to, coaches, owners. I'm ecstatic for the opportunity.
Congratulations.
And that is Fernando Mendoza. Taylor McGregor, the, funny enough, Chicago Cubs sideline reporter, I guess on-field reporter for the Chicago Cubs, does a lot of college football as well. So, not much of a shock. New York Jets, with just under 3.5 minutes remaining on their board, with the time still on the clock. Again, mind you, at this point, I had them selecting David Bailey. This is a team that does not have a quarterback. If they think Geno Smith is their quarterback, I think that is, unfortunately, just not the guy that you want to really bank on taking you to the next level. Aaron Glenn saying this is a go for it type of year. I think this is him more or less just saying he is trying to save his job. They need to hit this. They need to get themselves a premier player. The pick is officially in for the New York Jets. I'm kind of waiting for them to do something crazy here, because this is the Jets. We talk about a team kind of being a poverty franchise. Could we see an absolute shocker come up here on the board where they say screw it. Everyone's been talking about how we don't have a quarterback. We don't have a team. This is a go for it year. Could this be Ty Simpson? I don't think it will be. I really, really don't. But at the same point, I'm also not going to be really shocked if it is. But again, I do think they seriously need to go edge rusher here. Get themselves some high caliber defensive players. Again, Aaron Glenn is a defensive coach. He's hoping to not have to pick this high ever again, except for one of the two additional first round picks that he has from opposing teams next year in either the Colts, Cowboys, or Packers, depending on which one of those teams has the higher overall pick. But yeah, it is. I think it's going to be David Bailey. Let me know down in the chat what you think the Jets are going to do as the commissioner makes his way up to the podium. So we will send it down and listen in to who the New York Football Jets are going to be selecting.
With the second pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select David Bailey, linebacker, Texas Tech.
It is indeed going to be David Bailey, the edge rusher. I know the commissioner said that he is a linebacker, but this guy is an edge rushing machine. Rushes the passer like a bat out of hell. In the college football playoffs for that stacked Texas Tech defense, he turned it up to a completely nether gear this season. Had double-digit sacks this season, and I kind of talked about it here in the mock draft when I ultimately mocked David Bailey to go to the New York Jets. 14.5 sacks this last season, tied for the most in college football. But I kind of sat back and said, you know what? This guy, he is not really much. He's not going to do a ton for you in the edge rush, or pardon me, the run stuffing department. He needs to work on that. But he was an absolute maniac out there on the field where he looked like he was the best player in college football during his playoff games. And the Jets, they said they were going to go edge rusher. This is the guy that they ultimately got. And again, not much of a shock right here for this back-to-back. Now, again, the Jets, they do have another first-round pick. Could we see them potentially try to trade up in this draft? I know there's been conversations about them trying to trade up with Washington to go after a quarterback or a wide receiver. But yeah, this guy is a very dynamic rusher, has an elite first step, and that's pretty much what you're looking for in a modern edge rusher here in today's football. Is if they have a great first step, chances are they're going to be a really, really good edge rusher, and David Bailey, without a doubt, has that. Is he going to be wasted in New York? Time is only going to tell. David Bailey, second overall. Cardinals, talking about them here now. What are the Arizona Cardinals going to do? Are they going to draft here at pick number 3, or are they going to trade back here in this draft? But David Bailey is on the stage, so let's listen in.
Player off the board in the NFL draft. What does it mean to hear your name called this early?
I mean, it's surreal to me, man. This is a great experience. It's just an awesome opportunity, and I'm just so grateful, man. Shout out all the fans that came out here. I'm just happy to be here.
How will you immediately impact this Jets defense?
Man, I just want to get in there and just be a sponge, just soak up everything, just, rely on the vets, rely on the staff to make me the best player I can and, help out this organization, man. I feel like this organization is trending in the right way, so, man, I'm just ready to work.
And that is David Bailey. Not going to have too much time for him to kind of listen in what he's going to do. Have myself a quick drink. But yeah, David Bailey, not really a shock here. For me, the question is, what are the Cardinals going to do? Are they going to trade back? Are they going to stay put? They haven't showed how much time is still left. Cardinals now officially have 2 minutes left. The war room is clapping here at the moment. So I don't know if that means their pick is in or if they have officially made a trade. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see. But again, having new head coach brought in, the OC, Mike LaFleur, the brother of Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers in his first season, but he was the Rams offensive coordinator for the last 2 seasons. Less than 90 seconds here at the moment. I'm still wondering if it's a trade or if they have officially made the pick. But this has been a team that has been talked about a ton throughout this process as a team that you could see trading back. Again, they released Kyler Murray this offseason. Need a quarterback. Jacoby Brissett has been someone that says he wants to be paid like a starter. He's the only QB on the roster here at the moment, I believe. The pick is in, so the Cardinals are actually going to be drafting here. So I'm a little bit shocked at this, but this now means, where are the Cardinals going to go with this one? You have a guy like Arvell Reese, who is such a dynamic defensive player. Could this be someone to just add a superstar to their defense? Or could they say, screw it, we're going to go with Jeremiah Love, the running back? We know we might not have the infrastructure in front of a guy like Jeremiah Love, but we looked at the Raiders and they took Ashton Jeanty last year. They're going to be having a much better version of Jeanty here in year number 2. We're just going to do the exact same thing. Or could they just say, you know what? We're going to draft the best offensive lineman here in this draft, here at this moment. This is a team that I thought was very much going to trade back here at this spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what this pick could be. A lot of different directions they could go. But here comes the commissioner to officially make the pick for the Arizona Cardinals. And let's just see who it is.
With the 3rd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Jeremiah Love.
All right.
Running back.
Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame. My 2nd overall player on my draft board goes 3rd overall to the Arizona Cardinals. And I kind of talked about it a little bit here when the pick was officially put in, that they might just be looking at what the Las Vegas Raiders did last year when they had the 6th overall pick and selected Ashton Jeanty. This is a team that needs more O-line help. They without a doubt need more O-line help, but they get themselves an absolute game changer at the running back position. I love this player. He is not necessarily the fastest guy, but he can definitely take it up to another gear. He just shakes people out of his shoes, is very loose runner, is just so fluid in his motions. He's a home run waiting to happen at any single down. He's just such a dynamic player. He has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield as well, which is why he's starting to get some comparisons to potentially like a Christian McCaffrey type player. I don't think he's necessarily Christian McCaffrey, but I can understand where people are coming from. This is a guy that I actually think is better than what we saw out of Ashton Jeanty last year. I think he's just that maybe a little bit slight edge. Different players, very, very close in what both of these guys do, but Yeah, Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, goes to the Cardinals. Again, Mike LaFleur saying, you know what? Get me a dynamic offensive player. We will worry about what we are going to do quarterback a little bit later. But this is without a doubt an interesting pick. Jeremiah Love, I know if we're talking about fantasy football, is going to be someone that is going to be gaining a lot of hype in terms of first overall pick if you are in dynasty leagues. Going to the Cardinals, I wonder how he's going to fare, but one of the biggest discussions that you can possibly talk about with running backs taken this high up in the draft is when you do have a running back, they often hit. You just go back to last year. I think Ashton Jeanty had a little bit of a down year. Just look at the offensive line that was ultimately in front of him. I think he's going to be absolutely fine. You go back to Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson has without a doubt been a hit. You go back to guys like why am I blanking here? Like Saquon Barkley. That was a guy who hit. You know, he found some good success a little bit earlier in his career and then kind of fell off a little bit due to injuries and just kind of bad team, bad play, but then had a resurgence when he officially got with the Eagles. This is a really solid pick. I'm not going to say the Cardinals hit this one out of the park, but you're getting yourself a dynamic player on offense who can kind of just do it all. Again, I thought the Cardinals were going to trade back here, but they just viewed this kid and said, there's no way that we could lose him. And yeah, he's going to be fun to watch in Arizona. Very, very fun to watch in Arizona for sure. Tennessee Titans now up on the clock. My board, as we can see here, has already busted as the third overall pick was a different team and a different player. Still have this potentially go, and with the Tennessee Titans now up on the board, Arvell Reese, the pick is officially in for the Titans. You have to wonder if Robert Saleh is looking at this going, I need to get myself a game changer on the defensive line. I'm just wondering if that's where they're going to go. Could they potentially try to get a guy like Sonny Styles, who I had them mocked to? Could they go with the top available offensive lineman here in this draft? But the pick is officially in. Now we are just waiting on Brian Daboll is chatting with someone. So could this be an offensive player like Carnell Tate, the offensive coordinator, on the phone? Might be tipping the hand a little bit at the potential side of the ball of which this pick is going to be. I personally think if you're up here on the board right here at the moment, making a move like a Carnell Tate, getting your young quarterback in Cam Ward, a surefire weapon to play with, is the smart move. I think picking defense here at this spot is just simply not the right play. But the commissioner, I believe, is making his way out, showing something up on the board, but we'll just have to wait for a few moments. And here's the commish, almost ready to the podium, so we'll wait here for and listen. I'm thinking it's going to be Carnell Tate here, though.
With the fourth pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Carnell Tate. Whoa.
Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from Ohio State. Again, I felt like the Titans kind of maybe tipped their hand a little bit as they were shown on the screen. But yeah, like I said, this is a team that needs offensive firepower for their quarterback. And man, oh man, Carnell Tate, the safest wide receiver pick here in this draft class, goes down to Tennessee to catch passes from last year's first overall pick in Cam Ward. Brian Daboll, the new offensive coordinator, I think was kind of in the ear saying, listen, I know we want defensive players on this team, head coach Robert Saleh, but this is an offensive league. If your quarterback does not have offensive pieces to go out there and have weapons around him, he's just not going to be that good and not going to be that effective. This to me is a very, very smart pick. This is exactly what the Titans needed to do. Again, I'm wrong here on this one. I had the Titans staying put and selecting Sonny Styles, but they do the smart thing. I remember when I was talking about this mock draft, I felt that going offense would have been the smarter move, but this is just a very good move. A polished route runner. Biggest thing, Cardinal Tate has never been a number one receiver in the NFL. That has been a very, very big, or he's never been a number one receiver at the collegiate level. Again, we talked about him playing with guys like Jeremiah Smith. This is going to be another top 5 draft pick, and probably it could go as early as number 2 overall in next year's draft. Had to play with Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr., so he's never had to be that number one guy. Now he's going to be the number one guy in Tennessee. Again, like I said, I love this pick here for the Titans. William, if you're watching, send some notes in the chat there, buddy. That way we can chat with you. But yeah, Cardinal Tate, great pickup. Interesting pick by the Cardinals. Yeah, Sterling, buddy, great to have you in here. Was indeed an interesting pick. I do like the pick there for the Cardinals. You're kind of going a little bit with the Las Vegas Raiders strategy when they picked Ashton Jeanty last year. However, you know what? Sometimes you just got to get yourself the best playmaker for what you think the team is ultimately going to be able to do. Now we have the New York Football Giants up here on the clock. Obviously, this is where they ultimately picked in terms of where they finished. Jackson Dart was their quarterback out of last year, where they traded back up into the first round last year to ultimately get Jackson Dart. They also drafted Abdul Carter. I believe it was 3rd overall. John Harbaugh, now the new head coach from the Giants. Could this be a Caleb Downs spot? Again, we know the affinity that the Giants have, or Harbaugh has, for safeties. He drafted Kyle Hamilton. He had Ed Reed. The pick is officially in here for the Giants. But as I predicted in my mock draft right here, I had them selecting Jordan Tyson. I could very, very easily see this be the direction that they are going to go down. But you got to look at a guy like Sonny Styles as well. They brought in Tremaine Edmonds this offseason, who is a big linebacker. It's very similar style of play to Sonny Styles, but I think Sonny Styles is obviously a much better player at that position. You also have to look at guys like on the offensive line. Do you want to give protection to your young quarterback? Could we see a Vega Ioana, the guard out of Penn State, be drafted as early as pick number 5? Maybe you go with a Monroe Freeling and say, you know what, we're just boosting this offensive line and really adding some pressure up front. But again, it could go all the way of just Jordan Tyson, and maybe, just maybe, if you are the New York Giants, you're looking at a guy like Arvell Reese, who maybe shockingly still on the board. And you go, you can never have too many elite defensive linemen. I know Reese isn't necessarily a defensive lineman, but maybe they just look at that and go, we could have the opportunity to have a Micah Parsons level player on our already stacked defensive line with guys like Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau. We add a guy like Arvel Reese to that. We're not going to have him play a dedicated role to that edge rushing spot, and we can have it be more situational. I know the Jacksonville Jaguars are looking at their first overall pick and Travis Hunter, saying, you know what, we like the idea of you playing both corner and wide receiver, but we want you to play 75 to 80% corner in the NFL to 25 to 20% wide receiver. And maybe this is the Giants saying, okay, you know, Kayvon Thibodeau is a player that is going to be on the last year of his deal. Brian Burns, you know, as he was really, really good last year, you know, maybe we just want to try to find a team that wants to trade for him if we go with a guy like Arvel Reese. And we basically say to Reese, hey, we know that you have some pass rushing upside, but we're going to have you play 80% linebacker and kind of play beside Tremaine Edmonds, and then we're going to have you do 20% of that edge rushing. Maybe it's 75-25, maybe it's 65-35, or you know, whatever the case may be. I could see a case here for Arvel Reese being the 5th overall pick to the Giants, but for me right now, I still think the pick is going to be Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. As the commissioner makes his way out to the stage, we are going to find out that oh so important question coming up here. We have a few special guests coming out with the commissioner, so we'll have this be a little bit longer, but still good nonetheless. Send it over to the commish.
In partnership with the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, TAPS, one of the NFL's Salute to Service partners, we are honored to recognize the surviving family of United States Army Major Paul C. Vokey.
We will wait for the person to actually make the pick. Not trying to have too much sound from it go off the board. Obviously, kind of leave this here. We'll kind of get through the top 10. And I'm assuming they're going to hand over the selection to one of the individuals, and then they will ultimately be making the pick. But yeah, I do think Jordan Tyson will be it.
A tradition he
Okay, just kind of go in and out, trying to listen in and kind of see what happens there. And here we go.
With the 5th overall pick of the 2026 NFL Draft, the New York Football Giants select Arvel Reese, linebacker from the...
I kind of talked about it right there. Arvel Reese goes to the Giants. The rich get richer when it comes to the defense. Arvel Reese, the edge rusher, that's what they have it up there on the board. Again, you have Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter already on the board here at the moment. I think this is the Giants saying, you know what, this guy is just too good of a player to ultimately pass up on. If we can have a Micah Parsons level player come to our defense and potentially try to change that. Again, Abdul Carter was talked about as potentially being that Micah Parsons level player last offseason. But this is them, I think, saying we are more than happy to have him play both linebacker and edge rusher. I am really intrigued to see how they're ultimately going to go with this. But I think the little bit of the shock for the Giants, seeing Arvel Reese there, maybe the Cowboys came calling. They said, we are sure as hell not giving you this player. And if we allow Cleveland to be up on the board next, this is exactly where it's going to go. So we're just ultimately going to take him. So a little bit of a shock, but this makes me really wonder what's going to happen with Kayvon Thibodeau. Again, a guy that is in the last year of his contract. Oh, the Kansas City Chiefs are officially up on the clock. My, oh my, I'm going to have to see exactly what they ultimately traded for, but the Chiefs, what did they potentially trade up to get? But a trade right here, the Chiefs, okay, so we have officially a trade. The Chiefs are moving up with the Cleveland Browns. We did know that they are moving back, so the Chiefs are getting pick 6. The Browns are sending pick 9, 74, and 141, which they don't have. I think it's 148 is what that pick is. But the Chiefs are officially trading with the Browns. That for pick 6. That's what's going to happen. But yeah, again, a little bit of breaking news right there. But yeah, a little bit of a shock as we see. And again, I'm just kind of taking a look here through Twitter. I'm trying to stay off Twitter because sometimes they can ultimately spoil the pick. But the Kansas City Chiefs are up on the board. Who is this going to be for? Is this going to be for Ruben Bain? But again, just taking a look at this right here. As you can see, I'll move my... Actually, it was in a perfectly fine spot right there. You have pick 9, 74, and 148 going back to the Browns for pick number 6. Again, the Chiefs moving up here in this draft. And ultimately, they are going to pick someone here in the top 6. The pick is in for Kansas City. So it is indeed the 9th pick, or the 9th overall pick, 74 and 148. So exactly kind of what we had it. It was initially, it showed 141, which I kind of was interested in. But yeah, so this is going to be interesting. What are the Chiefs going to do? This, to me, it screams they're going after Ruben Bain, getting up in front of Washington. I think they're looking at Washington right now going, with Carnell Tate off the board, could we lose Bain to the Commanders? Could we lose Bain to the Saints? And we just need to ultimately make this move. But could this be them jumping up for Sonny Styles? But the pick is in for the Chiefs. And here comes the commissioner to tell us what this is. My, oh my.
Pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Mansour Delane.
The Chiefs trade up to select Mansour Delane, the corner out of LSU. I gotta say, I'm a little bit shocked by that one. Love the player, love the situation and the place that he is going to. Mansour Delane, I thought, was the most consistent corner this entire season in college football. I don't think he necessarily has the same talent as Jermod McCoy does out of Tennessee. I think Jermod McCoy, if he didn't sit out the entire year with that knee injury where he was rehabbing the entire season, he would have been probably the pick here. Mansour Delane was just consistent throughout the entire season. And obviously with the Chiefs losing out by trading away Trent McDuffie and then losing their other corner, who ultimately, funny enough, signed with the Rams, I figured the Chiefs would have gone with the big player in this sense. But they trade up to guarantee Mansour Delane. Yeah, no, I'm a little bit shocked at this one. again, corner was a need. It was very, very much a need. And maybe they just looked at the defensive line unit and said, we are perfectly fine, actually, just kind of going where the draft has kind of gone and saying, you know what, we'll be able to find someone where we like. But yeah, this guy is very, very good in man coverage. I don't really know who I would necessarily have him as a pro comp, but he's a sticky man coverage type player. He has kind of the size that you want. He's just shy under 6 foot, plays pretty good zone defense, and Big Red Andy Reid up on the screen getting his star defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, a high level defensive playmaker. Again, this has been a team that has been able to draft and develop corners at a very high rate. Again, I'm just kind of a little bit shocked that it's Mansour Delane. Again, if this was pick 9, I would be a little bit more understanding of it, but to actually trade up to do it, that's where some of the confusion comes in for me. But again, the Chiefs, they wanted this guy, they identified this guy, and they said, we are taking this guy. Browns gain a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick here in this year's draft, and not wanting to try to ultimately get some 2027, because I don't think any team is really going to want to try to trade away 2027 picks. But now moving over to the Washington Commanders, who are they potentially going to go after? Wide receiver, we talked about it here in the mock draft. The pick is officially in, but in the mock draft, I said this is a team that would be very, very interested in a Carnell Tate. Could we see them potentially go with a Makai Lemon or a Jordan Tyson? Could we see them go with Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon? But we also know this is a defensive-minded led team. And so I could easily see Sonny Styles. This has been kind of the team that I've been mocking Sonny Styles to the most here in the lead up to the draft. But you could also very easily see them going with a guy like Ruben Bain because they need some of that defensive help. It's going to be an interesting spot to see what the Washington Commanders ultimately do. Here's the commissioner. He has some special guests out there with him, though.
The Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award, presented by Nationwide, is awarded to one player each year and celebrates their profound impact on and off the field.
Yeah, so introducing the Walter Payton Man of the Year. I'm not sure if they're going to do that, but let's see what the pick is.
And the league welcomed its newest member to the prestigious club 2 months ago, Super Bowl champion and 6-time All-Pro Bobby Wagner.
Bobby Wagner is that.
On behalf of the Payton family and Nationwide, I encourage players drafted this week to make their community and the league a better place.
You want to go for it, or you want me?
With the 7th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select Sonny Styles.
Sonny Styles, my number 1 player here in this year's NFL Draft, goes to the Washington Commanders. This man is 6'5", 245 pounds. Was a safety to start his college career, ultimately got moved up to the linebacker spot, very similar to what we saw from Brian Urlacher all the way back in the day, very similar to what we saw from Fred Warner when he made the switch up into the NFL. This is a guy who is an athletic freak, who is just an absolute monster. This is the guy that I wanted most in the NFL draft. If I had to sit back and say I had a draft crush, this was the guy. He is such a physical presence, and he has the speed that you want out of your middle linebacker, but he also has the ability to cover tight ends and nickel or slot wide receivers, but he also has the speed to go after these running backs. And he has a little bit of pass rushing upside. He's not going to be used in the pass rushing role similar to what Arvell Reese is, but this is a guy that I think makes a ton of sense for the Commanders. They need defensive help. Obviously, did they end up re-signing Bobby Wagner? I don't fully remember if they did or did not, but this is an unbelievable talent that the Commanders are getting here at pick 7. Like I said, I thought Sonny Styles was the number 1 football player here in this year's draft, regardless of position, coming out of Ohio State. Man, oh man, he is going to be a problem for the Commanders. And when I say a problem, he's going to be a problem in a very, very good way, because he is so goddamn talented. This is the best linebacking prospect to come out of the draft since Roquan Smith, in my humble opinion. And yeah, this is, great pick here for the Commanders. I'm not the world's biggest Washington Commanders fan. I hope they would have gone elsewhere with that one. And I knew I was never going to have the Bears get Sonny Styles, but I've been predicting this is kind of where they were going to go. And this is kind of what I thought they were going to do, with him still up on the board. Carnell Tate no longer on the board. It made a ton of sense that is the pick. New Orleans Saints here on the board, and this is now where I think we are going to have the conversations of a Rueben Bain Jr. The question for him, obviously, it's been talked about throughout the entire draft process, which is the arm length, arm length, arm length, arm length. I think that if you haven't had a player with his arm length or shorter, what I think it's like 31 inches or shorter, which Rueben Bain is put into that category, to have double-digit sacks since 1999. So we're in 2027, so that's damn near 30 years, 28 years. If my math is correct, chances are it's probably not. I don't think that is a player that I would be willing to spend a top 10 pick or even a first round pick on. We'll have to see if some team does. Obviously, we'll still have to wait and see where he is going to be drafted, just to say the least. But I do think the New Orleans Saints, this is kind of where we start to have that discussion about a Rueben Bain Jr. The pick is in, so we're going to get the answer to that question here relatively soon. This is a team that I could also see going for a guard, Vega Ioana, out of Penn State. They need some guard help. You could go with Kenyon Sadiq here at this point, just try to add that almost wide receiver presence that can do that little bit extra. Could you go with Caleb Downs here at the moment, or is it a Mekhi Lemon or a Jordan Tyson to add just that actually true wide receiver presence? It's going to be interesting to see what the Saints do. I don't think they need quarterback. I could have seen them go running back, obviously. Yeah, that's not kind of necessarily the area code for them. But yeah, their top needs, edge, wide receiver, guard, kind of the areas that I'm looking at here. Could they go with Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee to kind of add some more help to the back end of that defense? It's going to be kind of interesting. When I had my mock draft a little bit earlier, this is where I had Jeremiah Love going, and kind of that little bit of a shocker coming backwards. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but, it still happened to go. But let's actually, while we have this little bit of commercial break, see how we ultimately did. We got Fernando Mendoza, we got David Bailey, and then the rest we have been completely wrong about, as, we did see the Cardinals stay put and select Jeremiah Love. Carnell Tate went to the Titans. Arvell Reese went to the Giants. Mansour Delane went to the Chiefs after they traded up to go get him. and then Sonny Styles to the Commanders. So far, this mock draft has looked quite bad throughout the early stages of this. We'll just have to see. Obviously, this pick isn't going to be correct. You know, at least I was correct in the trade. I was able to predict a trade. That's something. So we'll see what the Browns do, and maybe I can start to redeem myself at pick number 9 with the Cleveland Browns, and then we can kind of go down that list and ultimately see if I can continue to kind of hit things a little bit more on the correct side of things. How's everyone doing here tonight, wherever you are, wherever you're watching? We appreciate it here at 1IQ Sports Talk. Been a little bit more quiet as of recently. Again, busyness in real life. I know Sterling, my podcast partner, has had some computer troubles. That is going to be fixed here in the upcoming weeks, as he now has a brand new shiny and sparkling computer. And yeah, we are going to be back kind of talking about a lot of these picks here. Obviously, no podcast this weekend. Might happen on Sunday, probably not. But yeah, it is, the pick is in for the Saints. As I have said, it's the area code of where you could see the board start to go off with Ruben Bain. I don't think Francis Mauigoa is going to go here. Could you see Caleb Downs? I am going to put my hat on the limb here and say it's going to be Ruben Bain here at the moment. But let's let the commissioner let us know what this pick is going to be. Apparently not. They're allowing the band to continue to play and go on. There we go. Who are the Saints going to pick?
In the 2026 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Jordan Tyson.
Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. Kind of an area code of where I thought they could potentially go. Again, for me, I looked at Jordan Tyson and said, Carnell Tate is the safest wide receiver prospect in this year's draft. Jordan Tyson is the best wide receiver in terms of just play style, ability, and upside. The problem with Jordan Tyson, he has not had a single year where he has been healthy. He is, I think, someone who can be very Jamar Chase-esque. I don't think he's as quick as Jamar Chase, but he plays a very similar game to Chase, and almost like that LSU wide receiver that we've seen come out for so many years. He is everything that you want out of a number one receiver. Crisp route running, he's fast, he's got strong hands, he has the ability to get up and over guys. Again, it's just been that issue of health. Played at Colorado, had a serious leg injury, dealt with hamstring issues this season. A little bit of a gamble here for the New Orleans Saints for sure. But with your young quarterback, not really that young, trying to get him a handful of weapons, you got HN now as your top running back, and this really kind of sets the Saints up with a lot of firepower. And again, Kellen Moore, their head coach and offensive play caller, this is one of those moves where he just sits back and goes, yeah, you just give him some firepower to work with their QB. Going into year number 2, Jordan Tyson, a little bit emotional coming up to the stage. We love to see it, but yeah, this is not much of a shock for me, at least in this one. As I'm giving silly faces to Will, who does the baseball podcast here on the channel. Highly recommend that you check that one out. Cleveland Browns now up on the board. Where are the Browns going to go? I personally think it is very much going to be the linebacker or the offensive lineman spot. They need O-line pretty much at every single spot. Left tackle, left guard, right guard, center. You can easily make the argument that all 5 of those spots need upgrades. They traded for a tackle. Is he much of an upgrade? We don't know. Now it's pretty much just a question of which tackle do the Browns think is, or which offensive lineman do they think is the best available? When we just look at O-line here, you have Francis Mauigoa, Spencer Fano, Monroe Freeling, Caleb Lamu, Caden Proctor. Those are all guys from the tackle spot that could potentially fall in this one. I think more likely it's going to be Mauigoa, Fano, and Freeling from the tackle spot. From the guard spot, Vega Ioana. There isn't a center worth a first-round pick or even an early second-round pick. So to me, right now, it's going to be Francis Mauigoa, Spencer Fano, Monroe Freeling, or Vega Ioana. Those are the area of where I see this Browns team going. Like I said, in my mock draft, I did have them trading back with the Chiefs going to pick number 9, and I have them selecting Monroe Freeling. The pick is officially in here for the Browns, so we should be finding out who it is going to be here in just a few moments. A lot of talk about Monroe Freeling. Again, a player, hasn't had a ton of starts at the collegiate level, but was a 5-star pick. New head coach Todd Monken, I would be shocked to see them have this be a quarterback. I really would. I would also be shocked to see I will be shocked to see this be anything other than an offensive lineman. Could they go crazy on us and say it's going to be Ruben Bain? I know I kind of talked myself into the Giants going after Arvell Reese. I don't think I'm going to be able to talk myself into the Browns here at this spot, going with a Ruben Bain. To me, this has to be offensive line here for the Browns. I would be exceptionally shocked if it wasn't. But here comes the commission. He's going to announce the pick for us here.
Selection of 2. With the 9th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Spencer Fano, tackle Utah.
Spencer Fano, the tackle out of Utah, is the pick going to the Cleveland Browns. And I was right in that conversation of it was an offensive lineman, but it was Spencer Fano. And this was kind of a player that it was different strokes for different folks when it came to who was going to be the first offensive lineman off the board. I kind of looked at it and went, I felt like Monroe Freeling had the top upside. This is a right tackle in the NFL. He was a right tackle at college. Very, very, very good player. Very athletic in space. And is someone that is just going to help bolster this offensive line. Did not allow a sack in the final 23 games of his college career. When you talk about an offensive lineman, you don't want them to give up sacks, and this guy didn't do it. And he is now the first offensive lineman here, or this is now the first offensive lineman off the board in this year's draft. The Giants have their pick in. Again, this is the pick that they received from the Cincinnati Bengals in the Dexter Lawrence trade. We'll get back to that in a few moments. But the Browns, again, you go with offensive linemen and say, hey, they should draft a punter. I know you would love that, but the commission coming right back out. So the Giants, they made their pick and they are ready to go. Let's see who the Giants go after. We didn't really have much time to even talk about this pick.
The 10th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Francis Mauigoa.
Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle for Miami, goes to the Giants. I gotta say, I'm a little bit shocked at both of these picks because you had guys like, Caleb Downs right there, and they go both heavy guys, saying, you know what, we're getting Arvell Reese to be just this athletic freak on the defensive side of things. Francis Mauigoa, who to me was my top tackle here in this year's draft class. And this is a guy that at Miami played very, very well. And you're John Harbaugh looking at your young quarterback in Jackson Dart saying, hey, you got banged up a lot last year. And they're also looking at their young running back in Cam Scatterbo saying, you also got banged up a lot last year and couldn't even finish the season due to injury. I knew offensive line was definitely at play here at this stage of the draft. I'm not really shocked by this at all, as I see we have another trade up here on the board as the Dallas Cowboys have moved up a spot, jumping over Miami. We're just going to have to see what the trade package here was. I'll obviously kind of talk about this, but this is the Dallas Cowboys moving up one spot with Miami, doing this, and so the Cowboys are trading, or they're sending pick 117 and 180 along with pick 12 to get pick 11. And now we're just going to have to see what the Cowboys are ultimately going to do. But before we get to that, let's just see what they are going to do here. So yeah, again, Miami, they need a ton of picks at the Apple. Again, go back to Francis Mauigoa, Brendan, talk about this. This is a guy that is just a true professional. He's going to give a ton of protection to their young quarterback and hopefully keep him upright, and is just a freak of nature of a human being. Cowboys trade up. This has to be for either a guy like Ruben Bain or Caleb Downs. Obviously, with the pick, I think the pick is officially in here for the Dallas Cowboys, but this is a team that needs defense. Pretty much no matter what the Cowboys do, if this is a defensive player, that is kind of the right move, but the Dolphins move back one spot and gain a couple of mid-round picks. Just have to kind of see who it's ultimately going to be. I could very easily see them going with Caleb Downs here at this spot. He's just too talented of a player to continue to fall. I really wonder if they looked at Miami and said, we're really worried about you taking Caleb Downs away from us. But yeah, officially 2 5th-round picks the Cowboys send over to move up one spot. Pick, I'm just waiting to see if it's officially in here at the moment. But yeah, I'm not going to be shocked if this is a defensive player here in the draft. That is where this team really struggled with. And are they going to be the insane team to take Ruben Bain Jr., or is it going to be someone else? I'm curious if he does fall back, if Ruben Bain isn't the draft selection here for the Dallas Cowboys, where does he go? I don't know if Miami would be willing to take him. You know, I don't think the Rams would take him at 13. I think the Ravens, I think it might ultimately be the Ravens would be the next logical spot, unless we see another team trade up to go get that. Could potentially, the Bucks, they need defensive help badly here in this draft. But yeah, this, I'm going to put my stamp on it and say I think the Cowboys are probably going to go with Caleb Downs. This is just too good of a player for them to pass up on. Again, I don't necessarily think safety is their world's biggest need. It is a need for sure, but you know, you could be talking about corner, edge rusher. Again, pretty much at all phases of the defense. The defensive line, linebackers, and then secondary, whether it's, a perimeter secondary player or it's just the back end of that secondary in safety. I'm just looking at the board right now for the Cowboys. It would have to be Caleb Downs. He's just too safe of a player at this spot, and it would make a lot of sense. And that would be, as much as I hate to admit it for Cowboys fans, this would be an absolute unreal pickup for them. I don't even know if I should even continue to look back at this one because it is just completely fallen off the board. Again, right now, I have 2 picks right in Fernando Mendoza and David Bailey. Those are the only 2 picks that I have right here at the moment. Looking at this one, I got a trade right for the Browns and the Giants, but neither of the players I got right in that department. I had Caleb Downs going to the Giants at 10. They selected Francis Mauigoa. And yeah, we'll just have to continue to see what this is going to be. But I have been very, very wrong on a lot of these picks here at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see if I can get anything more than just 2 picks right here in this draft. But right now, my mock draft has not looked good thus far. Unfortunately for the Cowboys, there isn't an offensive lineman here in the draft with the first name of Tyler. That is kind of where they've gone to the last couple of years, making that a really funny joke. But yeah, I really do think Cowboys, they go with Caleb Downs here at this spot. And they just crazy enough to go with Rueben Bain? And then the question is going to be, where is Rueben Bain ultimately going to fall to here in the draft? But the pick is in, the commissioner is making his way to the podium, so let's all listen in.
With the 11th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Caleb Downs, defensive back.
It is indeed Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. He was a top pick for me in this year's class. This is just an incredibly, incredibly smart football player. Someone that was recruited by Nick Saban out of high school, and Nick Saban basically said, you're going to come in and be a starter right away, which if you knew Nick Saban and his defenses, a true freshman almost never started for Nick Saban, and this was one of his favorite players that he ever coached. Only was there for a year, retired, and decided, if Caleb Downs, he said, you know what, I'm going to go over to Ohio State. It's a team that is also really, really good in terms of the defensive players and developing players to that next level. Going to have the opportunity to go win a national championship, and he did last season, not this year. Obviously, Indiana won, but this is just a smart player, and I hate that the Cowboys ultimately got Caleb Downs because he is an unbelievably talented player. And Cowboys seemingly make the right draft picks a lot of the time here in the first round. It's just that they continue to do really, really dumb things. Caleb Downs, his brother, also plays in the NFL. Josh Downs with the Indianapolis Colts. I know there was a funny moment this week where Caleb Downs was asked, do you want to play your brother? And when you ultimately do go up against your brother, how hard are you going to hit him? He says he's going to flatten him in a really funny moment. But the value of Caleb Downs here at pick 11 is insanely high. The Jim Thorpe winner for the nation's top defensive back. He's a 2-time first team All-Pro, All-American in college. Again, this is just a home run pick here for the Cowboys. Now moving over to the Miami Dolphins. The question is just, what do you really want to do? you have nothing. You have Malik Willis as your new quarterback. He came over with your new head coach from Green Bay. I don't think Malik Willis is much of anything in terms of what the quarterback position is, but you gave him a 3-year deal. The problem is for him, he also has the worst wide receiver room in football here at the moment. I don't think that the Dolphins should select a wide receiver here with this pick. I think that would be a bit of a mistake for them here at the moment because they have so many other needs and so many pressing issues that they need to address and kind of ultimately take a look at. So where does that ultimately put them? Does that lean them more towards, going with an offensive lineman like a Monroe Freeling, a Caleb Lamu? Could they go Vega Ioana? Could they be the team that goes after Gerard McCoy, the corner out of Tennessee? Could they shock everyone and just say, screw it, we're going with Dylan Thieneman, going back-to-back safeties here in the draft in the early stages, really throwing a monkey into the wrench? Could this be Ruben Bain Jr.? I just don't really know. The pick is officially in. If I was the general manager for Miami, I would look at the offensive line and say, you know what? Let's go big. Let's get some big bodies out there. I would jump up and say Monroe Freeling is a guy that I would really, really like because he has the ability to be a very, very capable starting left tackle here in the NFL for a lot of years. Wouldn't be shocked at Vega Ioana, the guard out of Penn State, either. I'm curious to see where he is ultimately going to land here in this draft as well. But the commissioner making his way up to the stage. And this is going to be an interesting one because I'm not fully sure where they're going to go, but I'm going to say it's going to be Monroe Freeling.
With the 12th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Caden Proctor, tackle, Alabama.
Caden Proctor, the tackle out of Alabama, is going to Miami. Wow, oh wow. The man who's almost 6'7", 360 pounds, is a young fella and is just an athletic freak. I was not expecting them to go there. Again, Proctor, he has the potential to be a really, really special offensive lineman here in the NFL. He is an absolute machine in the run game, but playing in space, he's also really, really good. I looked at this guy and said, he has the ability to go around, I think, 17 to the Lions. This is maybe a little bit higher than I initially expected him to go. Pick number 12 being the third offensive lineman and the third tackle, when you still have guys like Monroe Freeling, Caleb Lamu, who I think could have potentially all gone ahead of him. This is a guy who is so big, who is so athletic, and still young, growing in development. I think Miami, with where they're at here in this draft, needing to get better, more physical. I remember when the Miami Dolphins came over to Chicago last preseason and had some of those practices, and the Chicago Bears were so physical, they beat up on the Dolphins so badly that they had beat reporters basically saying it was like a hit squad out there and crying and complaining about it. This to me basically just has them sitting back and saying, hey, we are just giving protection to our new quarterback, and I like it. Rams are up here next. Their pick is in. A lot of the conversation about this Rams team is, are they going to go with a guy like Makai Lemon out of USC? Could they go with Kenyon Sadiq? The conversation of, we are going all in for this season saying it is Super Bowl or bust, and a guy like a Mekhi Lemon or a Kenyon Sadiq is without a doubt in that realm of Super Bowl or bust for sure. But you also have to remember, Matthew Stafford isn't getting younger. This is very, very likely his last season in the NFL. So, is this where Ty Simpson goes? Les Snead, the general manager of the Rams, has had a lot of positive things to say about Ty Simpson. Could they sit back and say, hey, Sean McVay, we already have a ton of weapons. Let's give you someone to work with Matthew Stafford this year and to grow and develop. Because let's be honest here, there's no way in hell that Ty Simpson, if he goes to a team like the Rams, is going to start any game for the Rams at quarterback unless Matthew Stafford gets hurt, or it's the final game of the season and the Rams have already locked up a playoff spot and they're just resting guys. This is going to be a pivotal pick and kind of tells me the direction of this team, not only for this year, but for the future. Because again, if it is a guy like Mekhi Lemon or Kenyon Sadiq that says, hey, we are giving weapons galore, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, one of those two guys, the flurry of running backs in Blake Corum and why is his name skipping my mind? Doesn't really matter here at the moment anyways, but you just have this flurry of weapons for Sean McVay to sit back and say, hey, we have a good young defense. We added top needs to this defense, adding 2 corners in Trent McDuffie, obviously trading for Trent McDuffie, but this is ultimately the pick that they received from the Atlanta Falcons last year, and they could just say, hey, this is just a gravy pick. We're not going to have a pick like this for the next couple years, and they might just flex and say, hey, we're going for Ty Simpson to really make sure that we don't have to go here. The more I think about it, the more I want to lean towards Ty Simpson ultimately being the pick and kind of being the guy that they go with, but my football brain, that's kind of like my heart saying I want to see the Rams go with Ty Simpson, because it has without a doubt been a very large talking point of where he is going to go in this year's NFL draft. But I also sit back and I say, just with the football knowledge that I have, that this is going to be them going all out this season. And I could very, very much see them saying, Mekhi Lemon, this has been a player that they've been mocked with a ton, someone who I have mocked a ton to the Rams. And it would just make a ton of sense. Well, wherever you are, we appreciate you hanging out with us here tonight. Again, so far we have been live for just a little over 2 hours here at this point. Again, Matthew Stafford and the Rams are currently up on the clock. Is this going to be the heir replacement to Matthew Stafford, or are they going to go all out and select a weapon? Or maybe, just maybe, because, Ruben Bain is still up on the board. Are they going to say, hey, we have this incredibly gifted edge rusher in Jared Verse. Let's give him a playmate on the other side and really just attack people in terms of going after guys. But, could this be them adding another corner? Again, they traded for a corner and then they signed a corner, both from the Chiefs. Maybe they go Jermod McCoy, someone that we kind of go, you're talking about a team maybe just having too much at that spot. I don't really think that's where they're going to go. could this be a Monroe Freeling and saying, hey, we're going to add protection up front and really make sure that Matthew Stafford, our golden goat here at the moment, and someone that we want to go out there and win one more Super Bowl with before he retires, just giving him all of that protection up front. Could that be what they do? Again, we've had over the last 4 picks, 3 tackles and a safety go off. And we've also had 1 receiver if you make it 5. But the Rams have had their pick in, and here comes the commissioner to let us know the direction of what this team is going to do for either this year or the future. And here it is.
Has no pressure to play. Amazing.
With the 13th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Ty Simpson.
It is Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. And the Rams officially say we are finding the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford and saying, you know what? We don't need that rag of riches. We already have a ton of elite players on our board. We're not going to be picking this high again. Let's go get the guy that we really, really like and allow him to sit behind Matthew Stafford and learn. We talked about the Cardinals being a team that everyone figured would be potentially trying to trade back up in the first round this year to go get Ty Simpson. But this is the Rams saying, you know what? We're not allowing a team in our division to go get the quarterback that we like. We're just going to say, hey kid, you only started 13 games in college. Let's get you sitting behind one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now in Matthew Stafford. And sit back and learn for a year. Like I said, leading up to this pick, he is not going to start this season at all unless Matthew Stafford is injured or it is the final game of the season and the Rams have nothing left to play for because they're either so far ahead in the playoffs and they already have the number 1 seed locked up, or they can't move higher or lower in the playoffs. And plus, Ty Simpson now gets to be indoctrinated into the offense of Sean McVay. He gets to ask Sean McVay questions. He gets to ask Matthew Stafford questions, and he gets to really, really learn. Is it a little bit of a shock that the Rams end up going Ty Simpson here at this spot? Yeah, a little bit, but it also makes a crap ton of sense. Talking about the conversation of, was Ty Simpson a potentially better quarterback than Fernando Mendoza? I don't think he was. But if you just take the first 8 games from both of those guys this season, you can make the argument that Ty Simpson was better. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza ran away with it at the end of the year last year. And Ty Simpson dealt with injuries. The offense really couldn't get anything going the last stretch of the year. Things just weren't going right for Ty Simpson. But he's not going to have that issue here with the Rams. It's not necessarily how you finish the season. It's ultimately going to make the outlier. But when you talk about placing quarterbacks in positions where they're going to succeed, this is one of the few teams I sat back and truly thought to myself was a place where you could see Ty Simpson succeed. Because again, all the things that we've talked about, he's not going to be rushed to start. He gets to learn for a year. That limited time starting, if Matthew Stafford plays for 2 more years, that is exactly what this kid needs, just sitting back and learning the NFL. And he could not have gone to a better place for him to succeed. And this is just ideal for this young man. And this is probably going to be the best way for him to succeed. Because when you talk about players that just don't have a lot of starts in the NFL or at college from the quarterback position, this is one of, they don't necessarily often succeed. And you often want some of those guys to kind of sit back a little bit and learn. Wow, oh wow. Ty Simpson to the Los Angeles Rams. A little bit of a draft that has been a little bit more of a shocker so far this year. The Baltimore Ravens are up on the clock. The pick is in. Where are they going to go? I think Kenyon Sadiq would just make too much sense for this team. Again, you lost Isaiah Likely. You know, Mark Andrews isn't that same player anymore. He's older in the tooth. Are you going to have that next playmaker? Because you need to give playmakers to Lamar. But is this also the spot where you could very much see a guy like Ruben Bain go? Because they also need that edge rushing help. I talked about a little bit earlier here in the show that this is where it could be. But let's listen to the commissioner.
I don't know this is as much for the commission as
With
it
the
is for
14th
Baltimore.
pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Olayiwola Yowane.
Vega Awana, the guard from Penn State, goes to the Ravens. This was another pick that I could have realistically seen them going with, because losing some interior offensive linemen, they lost Tyler Linderbaum. They didn't really necessarily have the best guards on their roster. This is the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. The best pure interior offensive lineman. I know the Steelers were a team that was potentially looking to kind of go after this guy and maybe trade up to go get him, but he is a mean sucker. This is a phenomenally smart pick by the Ravens. He's a tone setter up on the front part of the O-line. And yeah, this is one of those picks where I just sit back and go like, yeah, man, I get it. I'm trying to get some more offensive line help to protect Lamar Jackson and give some holes for Derrick Henry to ultimately use up the middle. This is just a very, very smart player here for the Baltimore Ravens to ultimately have. And the pick is in for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need defense, guys. This is a team that desperately needs defense. I would be shocked if the Bucs didn't select a defensive player here. Are the Bucs the team that ultimately goes and says, we want a Ruben Bain Jr.? Are we going to be the team that is capable of being the outlier to get him past this point of just the short arms that he has? But they could look in it and say, we want, a Keldrick Falk who definitely doesn't have the same level of production at the college level as Ruben Bain does. Could we go Akeem Mesidor? Akeem Mesidor is his fellow edge rusher at Miami. Akeem Mesidor has been a player that I have mocked to the Buccaneers a ton throughout this process, mainly because they just need help on that D-line. And if you kind of look at, the board rate here of where they are, edge rusher, linebacker, D tackle, corner, tight end, it just goes to show how bad this secondary or just this defense is in general. They need a lot of help, but I also wouldn't really be shocked if they went for a guy like Kenyon Sadiq. The Bucs, they lost Mike Evans. Could they go with a Mekhi Lemon here at this point? Obviously, they drafted Emeka Egbuka in the first round last year, and he was phenomenal as a rookie. He was a phenomenal player last season, and I think he was someone who really put them in a position to be comfortable with losing a guy like Mike Evans. Now, Chris Godwin, is he going to be healthy? How is he going to play this year? That's why they might go with a guy like a Malachi Lemon or Kenyon Sadiq here. Again, Kenyon Sadiq, you can essentially say is really just a wide receiver. He's just a really big, heavy wide receiver who runs like a wide receiver. We'll kind of see what's going to happen here. But I really do think the Bucs need to go with the defense here. If you don't go with defense, you're looking at a head coach who is a defensive-minded head coach. And yeah, when he doesn't have defense players that he can really work with, that is going to be the question mark without a doubt. Obviously, Rueben Bain Jr., the top available player, still here on the board. Again, Kai Lemon, I have this little bit of a feeling if they're going to go offense, that's where they're going to go. Pair Lemon and Mbuka with each other. There's just something telling me that they're just not going to go Rueben Bain. I would be more than happy to be wrong on this pick and say that the Bucs are going to go with Rueben Bain, but I just feel like that's just not where they are going to ultimately land. And I would find it incredibly interesting if they ultimately went with Akeem Mesidor, the other Miami edge rusher. Again, a defense that was very, very poor last year. Again, just look at the needs that they have. Basically all defenders. Could we see them go maybe a guy like Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson, and pair him with I'm forgetting the name of the defensive tackle for the Bucs. There's so many players going through my mind here at the moment. I'm not going to remember everyone, but yeah, this has to be a defensive player. It has to. I would think it has to, but again, I have been fairly wrong in this one. Just going back to what we actually had for the Bucs, I had them trading back from this spot. The question is it going to be Rueben Bain Jr. or is it going to be a guy like Makai Lemon? But here comes the commissioner to ultimately let us know who it's going to be.
With the 15th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Rueben Bain Jr.
It is indeed Rueben Bain Jr. going to the Bucs. His slide has now officially ended. And looking at Rueben Bain, he looked very almost kind of pissed off here on the screen going by, not to the team that's picking him, but the fact that he was even there to be picked by the Buccaneers, without a doubt, has to be frustrating. This guy, like the things that I will say about Rueben Bain, he was virtually unstoppable as an edge rusher this season at the collegiate level. Like this is someone who played unbelievably hard and was just relentless. Could we see him potentially slide in to the interior of the D line to play more of that D tackle role? And will he have to gain a little bit of weight? But yeah, that 30-inch arms, that under 31-inch arms has not been a recipe to succeed in the National Football League. Not since 1999 have they had a player with that short of arms succeed or be a double-digit sack guy. And again, we talked about the Bucs needing defensive help. Rueben Bain was the best defensive player still available theoretically. And yeah, the Bucs, they're the team that I guess, is going to be sitting back saying, we are going to be the outlier here. We are going to be able to take him. I hope Ruben Bain breaks this trend of being able to be that dominating force with those short arms. But again, I'm happy for the Bucks to be smarter than me on this one. Maybe they sat back and said, we didn't think he was going to ultimately be here for us to pick, but that's where it is. That's what we're going to do. And we're just going to have to ultimately see how it pans out. I'm going to be really interested to watch Bain's rookie season just to see if he can be that next level edge rusher here in the NFL. Because if you watched him in the college football playoffs this year, he was an absolute threat all season long, had 5 sacks in the college football playoffs. Kind of interested to see what he says.
Is what I could do. That's how I think about myself. I know I'm the best in the country. I'm sure.
Every step of the way, you've proven doubters wrong. What gives you the confidence that you can continue to do that at the NFL level?
Like my mentality, I'm telling you, I can do anything I put my mind to because it's my mindset. And I know when I get at this next level, it's on and popping.
We believe you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Apologies as I scarf down another slice of pizza. But yeah, Ruben Bain, I really hope that he succeeds, man, because he's a really good player that just has the unfortunate nature that you just can't really, it's an unfortunate thing that you can't change about himself. I'm sure if he could give himself 34-inch arms, and here's the thing, if he had 33-inch arms instead of just 32-inch arms, he would have been a top 5 pick. Without a doubt. He might have been the 2nd overall pick to the Jets. Speaking of the Jets, they're back up on the clock and the pick is in. And so taking a look at what they did earlier in this draft at pick number 2, selecting David Bailey, they need some wide receiver help. Could they go up here on the podium and say, hey, we're going to draft a guy like Makai Lemon to pair with Garrett Wilson? But with the commissioner making his way to the podium, we're about to find out.
With the 16th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Kenyon Sadiq.
The New York Jets select Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. This is one of those things where they drafted a tight end in the 2nd round last year. Mason Smith, I think it was. I'm not entirely sure, but you need playmakers. And Geno Smith right now pretty much had Garrett Wilson, and they might still have their running back on the board. But Kenyon Sadiq is an absolute freak athlete with the ball in his hands. He's not a bad blocker either, not by any stretch of the imagination. And this is a guy that maybe didn't necessarily have the best final season to his college career, but is without a doubt someone who is gifted as a tight end. And this is a player that definitely helps out with Garrett Wilson, gives him a little bit extra to do. And this gives Geno Smith another player to throw the ball to. Geno Smith had Brock Bowers to work with last year. Didn't have him for every single game, but you can tell when Bowers was out there, that was an easy safety net. I don't think Kenyon Sadiq is even close to what Brock Bowers is, or even close to what Colston Loveland was, being the top pick as a tight end last year. But I do think this is a very solid pick for the New York Jets because you need to add offensive weaponry. Talked about them getting a wide receiver, but Kenyon Sadiq is basically just a wide receiver. That is essentially what he is. Just a little bit bigger and someone who can ultimately block just that little bit more than what you would expect. Detroit Lions are officially on the clock pick 17 overall. A team that can go in a myriad of different directions here. They struggled on the offensive line last year. That is where they had issues. They weren't able to get their offense to that same level. Now, again, losing Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears, that is something that without a doubt is a very, very big loss for the Lions. Having injuries on the offensive line, having their offensive line just kind of taking that little bit of a step back, made it so that they just weren't simply that same Lions offensive line that we had grown to see over the last few years. And you just kind of take a look here now. You have a guy like a Monroe Freeling. That would be a spectacular pick. The Detroit Lions pick is in, so you don't have to worry about them potentially trying to trade this away here. So we do theoretically know who the Lions have picked. We're just needing to wait for it to be announced. But yeah, a guy like a Monroe Freeling, Caleb Lamu would both be very, very good picks here for the Lions to make, because that gives them flexibility. Obviously, you have one of the best offensive linemen in the entire league with Penei Sewell. They want to potentially try to move him over to the left side. If you draft a Monroe Freeling, you don't have to worry about moving Sewell over to the left-hand side. You can just leave him over at that right side and have two really, really good tackles. But, you know, if you draft a guy like Caleb Lamu, this is someone that could potentially be that, you know, right tackle. But then again, Caleb Lamu at the collegiate level was a left tackle. So it's same sort of thing right there. But if we're talking other places where this team could go, you could look at them potentially right before the Minnesota Vikings taking a guy like Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon. Take Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher out of Auburn. Please, someone take that guy before the Bears get up on the board. Please, please, please. You know, maybe, just maybe, you go with a guy like a Caden McDonald up the middle. Even then, we talked about in my mock draft, Chase Bisontis, pardon me, being a guard that goes 22 overall to the Chargers. There's a lot of different areas of where this Lions team could pick. I expect them to move more towards the offensive line side, just because they are a team that has kind of been built on this offensive line, and they struggled last year. You're going to want them to get kind of back to that room if they want to try to get that offensive line and that offense back humming the way it should be. You know, new offensive coordinator on the team in Petzing was the former Cardinals offensive coordinator. You know, he's not Ben Johnson by any means. Not many people are. But I'm really curious to see if they're going to go offensive line or defensive line here with this 17th overall pick. Lions do have a special guest announcer coming out as well. So we'll listen in and allow these guys to kind of take it away.
The NFL is proud to be part of the global community of wish-makers, taking action to support Make-A-Wish during World Wish Month. Tonight, you all have the opportunity to help grant an unforgettable wish. I'm joined here by Easton, a 14-year-old Lions fan whose wish is to announce the first-round draft pick for his favorite team. I'd like to ask all of you to join me in cheering on Easton as he makes his wish come true. Take it away, Easton.
Who's it gonna be?
With the 17th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Blake Miller, tackle.
So it wasn't Monroe Freeling or Caleb Lamu that was going to be picked. It was actually going to be right tackle Blake Miller out of Clemson, who was the offensive lineman for the Detroit Lions. So this is a move that pretty much to me solidifies Penei Sewell moving over to the left-hand side. Because Blake Miller, he was a right tackle, had a ton of starts at the college level, 6'6", almost 6'7", almost 320 pounds. This is a guy that is very, very solid. Again, Clemson had a lot of issues this year. They had a ton of problems all over that team. Blake Miller was kind of one of those bright spots on the offensive line, or on the offensive side of things. A nasty, nasty finisher when kind of finishing off blocks, and someone who wants to kind of put you down into the ground. And he goes over to the Detroit Lions. So a spot where I thought they were very much going to go, obviously was the case. Let's see if I can get my third pick right here in this draft, where I had the Vikings selecting Dylan Thieneman, and the Vikings are now up on the clock. Are they going to go this way? This is basically who everybody has been mocking to the Vikings pretty much since the Combine. Plays a lot like Harrison Smith. Are they going to find their Harrison Smith replacement? Here is the commish.
With the 18th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Caleb Banks, defensive end, Florida.
Oh, okay. So not only do they not go Dylan Thieneman, the player that everybody had the Minnesota Vikings going with, they go with defensive tackle Caleb Banks out of Florida. Only played in 3 games this season due to injury, and at the Combine did walk away injured from this one. The first defensive tackle off on the board. This guy is a massive human being at 6'6", 330 pounds. Is an elite player in my opinion. The problem is, can you get him to stay healthy? I just don't know. Oh my. This was someone I without a doubt had a first round grade on prior to injury. Once we saw that foot injury come out after the Combine, I sat back and I went, there's no way that he can go anywhere close to the first round. The Vikings look at this and say, we're not worried about it. We're going to get ourselves an elite penetrating defensive tackle. This is a guy that has so much damn potential at the NFL level. Now they just need to ultimately get that locked in. And if he can stay healthy, that is going to be a tough player to ultimately run against if you are having to face the Minnesota Vikings. But yeah, everyone thought it was going to be the safety. And now it is the defensive tackle. But, however, we have a trade coming up after the Carolina Panthers, as the Philadelphia Eagles have actually moved up to pick number 20. So we'll ultimately have to get a double check to see exactly what they had there. Well, I'm just trying to find exactly what they're doing here. Okay, so the Cowboys are trading back with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm surprised an in-division trade was ultimately made. So Cowboys get this one. Or the Eagles get pick number 20. The Cowboys get 23, 114, and 137 to ultimately move up behind the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers are ready to make their draft selection. Trying to not spoil the pick for myself while I'm on Twitter. But yeah, let's talk about this Carolina Panthers team. This is a team, they spent big on their defense, adding a couple of guys, Devin Lloyd, the linebacker, and then they also added in, why am I forgetting the name of the guy? Doesn't really matter, but they added a big-time edge rusher as well, giving a ton of money. Could this be a spot where they draft an extra offensive lineman to help protect Bryce Young? Could this be a spot where they say, you know what, screw it. We have drafted a wide receiver 3 years in a row, or the last 2 years. We're going to go out there and get a guy like Makai Lemon here at this spot. And, you know, back to 2022, it was Ike Iwanu, the tackle. Could we see a guy like Jermod McCoy be here at this spot? Could it be another offensive or a defensive lineman to just help build out that defense? Because that's really where the Panthers struggled last year, was their defense, allowing other teams to just kind of control and dictate really what the game ultimately allowed. Jalen Phillips, that's the name of the edge rusher that they brought in and paid a boatload of money to. Maybe they sit back and say Keldrick Falk was someone who they want to pair Jalen Phillips with. Maybe they look at someone like a Peter Woods and say, hey, we want to get someone beside Derek Brown right up the middle and add that pressure right there. Devin Lloyd was also in that area code where it was like, man, like, you know, just adding to that defense. I would love to see the Panthers draft Keldrick Falk here. Basically, for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks, I would love to see every single team pick Keldrick Falk, because I do not want him on the board when the Chicago Bears make their pick, because that pick scares the ever-loving shit out of me. Commissioner coming out, Dave Canales, 3rd year of being the head coach for this team. Who does he and his Panthers take?
With the 19th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Monroe Freeling.
Monroe Freeling, the tackle out of Georgia, adding some help up the middle or on the edge for the Carolina Panthers, basically saying we are not allowing Bryce Young, our young quarterback, who is going to go into year number 4, to take any more hits. This is a guy who hasn't had a ton of play time at Georgia. I think he's only a 1-year starter for the Bulldogs, but he has a ton of high-end potential. I thought he would have gone a lot higher in this draft process, but this is a very smart heads-up play for the Panthers. I'm not a big Bryce Young believer. If you've watched this channel before and been around us when we're talking quarterbacks, I'm not someone who thinks Bryce Young is an elite quarterback or will ever reach that status of being an elite quarterback. But with that being said, I do think they need to give their quarterback in Bryce Young the best opportunity to succeed. And this is a way you do that. You get offensive line help, you get weapons, but the Eagles are making their way to the podium to announce their pick here at number 20 after trading up with the Cowboys.
Spots. With the 20th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Makai Lemon, wide receiver.
Makai Lemon goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, what does this mean for A.J. Brown? We know there was a report this week that A.J. Brown and pretty much the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots have kind of had talks where it's like, we're kind of both interested in trading with each other for you guys to get A.J. Brown, but has to be post June 1st. Makai Lemon is a guy who comes out of the slot and plays very similar to an Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think he is anywhere near as talented as Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he plays a game very, very similar to that. To me, I think this indicates that they are, without a doubt, looking to move on from him. And even if they don't move on from A.J. Brown, this is them basically saying, hey, Jalen Hurts, there's been some talk maybe you aren't necessarily the guy. So we're going to basically force your hand to say, hey, either you're going to be the guy with all of these weapons that you have, A.J. Brown, if he's still on the team. You have, why am I forgetting the Devontae Smith, the other receiver. And now this guy there as well with Saquon Barkley, with that offensive line. I was going to talk about how I could see this Eagles team going after an offensive lineman, but in the hopes to kind of find the replacement a year early for Lane Johnson, but they kind of maybe are just telling us what they're doing here with this pick, saying, hey, we're not going to have Devontae Smith, or not Devontae Smith, but A.J. Brown, so we're just drafting this early to just ultimately give us that little bit of extra help moving forward. And I got to say, I think this is a really, really smart pick, because either way, A.J. Brown there or A.J. Brown gone, you are going to have someone for Jalen Hurts to throw the ball to. You can very clearly see he's emotional walking up to the draft stage, but yeah, coming out of USC, this is obviously the wide receiver of the year winner in college football. I forget the official name of the award. Bletnikoff, I think it is. But yeah, you're getting someone who, not necessarily the biggest guy out there, plays very, very smart, and he's a fun player to watch. The Pittsburgh Steelers are up here on the clock. The draft being held in Pittsburgh. This is a team that needs quarterback. They need wide receiver help, as even though they don't necessarily need as much wide receiver help here at the moment. You go with some offensive line help. Oh, you know what? With Dylan Thieneman right here, right now, I could very much see them drafting Thieneman. Obviously, they brought in Jaquan Brisker to the team this offseason as a free agent, but that's only on a 1-year deal. Could this be the spot where we see the Steelers add the very rangy, very physical Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon? Or could we see them potentially go with a guy like an Omar Cooper, a KC Concepcion? The pick is officially in here for the Steelers, so this place is about to go bonkers here in a moment. Just looking at guys on the board. Could they go Chase Pazantis? Could they potentially find a guy like Emmanuel Pregnon? Because they need some guard help a little bit, but just looking at this Steelers team, could they just say fuck it and go with Carson Beck? We saw a little bit of a shocker with the Rams taking a quarterback here earlier in this draft at pick, what was it, number 13 overall? Yes, it was. Could the Steelers say, you know what? We're going to go with a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Cole Payton. I know they've talked a lot with Garrett Nussmeier and Cole Payton. I'm going to sit back and say that I think they are going to go Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon. Sterling, if you're watching, buddy, and I hope you are, that is where I think your team is going to go. But like I said, this place is about to erupt, as this is the Pittsburgh Steelers making the pick here at the draft in Pittsburgh. showing obviously a very nice montage video for Pittsburgh Steelers fans to get hyped up. The place looks absolutely insane right now. It looks absolutely... The atmosphere there must be just crazy. You love to see it. What? Where are they gonna go? Where the Steelers could pick? Could they go Caleb Lamu and just slide him into guard and say, you know what? We don't want you to play tackle. We want you to play guard. Maybe they just draft him as a tackle and then figure it out from there. Casey Concepcion, that would make a ton of sense as well. I would find it hilarious if they drafted Keldrick Falk. God, I don't want that guy on the Bears. I really, really don't want Keldrick Falk on the Bears. I need the Bears to either trade back out of the first round, which let me tell you, is my preferred method for the Bears. But my God, I do not want Keldrick Falk on this team.
At every level. Joining me on stage are 6 Jerome Bettis Leadership Award recipients, featuring both high school tackle players and flag football athletes. Jerome?
Thank you, Commissioner. The Jerome Bettis Leadership Award recognizes high school football players who demonstrate leadership, character, and...
Whoa, just kind of wait and listen for that one here. But it is... They're basically just announcing. Obviously, every year when the host city kind of has a conversation, let's listen in yet again.
I was fortunate to introduce T.J. Watt. And with the 21st pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Max Ihanachor, tackle, Arizona.
Max Ihanachor, the offensive tackle out of Arizona State, goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a young man who has not played a lot of football. He is a very, very raw prospect. And if he can get to his peak, coming over from Nigeria, from high school, a raw player who, if he can develop, could be unbelievably good here in the NFL. Again, this is not a sexy pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, this is without a doubt a player that could be used. Did not play football until junior college, JUCO, East Los Angeles College. That was the first time that he had. Transfers over to Arizona State. I am a little bit shocked by this pick, just because the little bit of lack of experience at just playing football. He has so much upside though, and it makes a buttload of sense that the Steelers go offensive line. And whether the Steelers are going to have Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback, please God, no, just let him retire into the wind. But you have to remember, they drafted a quarterback in Will Howard last year in the 6th round, who the Steelers really, really like, and they think is going to be, at least for the year, their quarterback of the future. They're going to give it a college try unless Aaron Rodgers decides that he wants to return to Pittsburgh, and then they're just going to kind of do it all again. But we are kind of in the home stretch here. The last 10 picks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, last 11 picks, pardon me, of the NFL draft. But we only have 10 more teams making picks, as the Los Angeles Chargers, their pick is in and they are getting ready to go. This is a team, they need guard help. My God, do they need guard help. They also need edge rushing help. Please God, take Keldrick Falk. please, God, someone take Keldrick Falk before the Bears. I would not be able to stand the Bears having that guy on the team. I just don't trust it. I just don't trust it. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the pick is in for the Chargers. They do need edge rushing help. That's another thing that they do need. So I just hope it's Keldrick Falk. I could see them very much going with Akeem Mesidor as well. But yeah, the commissioner making his way out here on the pick. They should really go offensive line to help Justin Herbert. Let's just see what they do.
With the 22nd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Akeem Mesidor, linebacker, Miami.
Akeem Mesidor, the Canadian, his draft house here at Ottawa, Canada, where he's from. One of the oldest players in the draft. Pardon me as I choke a little bit. Yeah, this is a really, really talented football player. Now, he is someone who played alongside Reuben Bain Jr. Again, that's what may have helped him have so much success here at the college level, playing alongside Bain Jr. But also, he was just so, pardon me, damn talented, had 5 sacks in the college football playoffs. And, you know, people are going to talk about his age. Without a doubt, they're going to talk about his age. But for me, all that really tells me with him is that he is someone who, you know, took advantage of it. And we're going to see older players coming out in the NFL draft right now as NIL gets more prevalent in keeping players in the NFL, or pardon me, in college football a lot longer. But Cowboys are up here. Please, for the love of God, Cowboys, take Falk. I really need the Cowboys to take Keldrick Falk. Still have about 4 minutes left here on the pick. Their pick isn't officially in here at the moment. But yeah, Akeem Mesidor. Of course, this is the time when I start choking on food. But this is a really, really, really solid player. The upside isn't necessarily as high as a lot of these other guys. But the floor is without a doubt high. The floor is what is without a doubt high here for the young man. He's going to come in and very much be a player who could get you 8+ sacks every single year for his career. 8+ sacks is easily something I could see him doing every single season. He's solid in the run stuffing. He is just overall a really, really good player. But again, you have to factor in the age and kind of the players that he was playing alongside with that really, really talented Miami defense. We'll just have to continue to wait and see what this draft ultimately has coming out. But the Dallas Cowboys back up here on the clock. Their pick isn't in, so are they potentially trying to... Are they potentially trying to trade this pick away and move back down? Are they really taking their time at trying to figure out who they want? Cowboys need defense. That is where they need. Obviously, getting Caleb Downs, their pick is in, so we do know that the Cowboys are officially making the pick here. I would be shocked to see them go Dylan Thieneman. even after, making the selection of Caleb Downs, but getting 2 really, really good safeties wouldn't necessarily be a shock. Jermod McCoy could very, very easily be this pick. Obviously, the injury concern with him, where he might have to have another knee surgery before the season start, that could keep him out. But this kid is so damn talented. Keldrick Falk, the defensive lineman, please God, let the Cowboys take him. Just giving me no more heart palpitations, essentially. I don't want to see that guy on the board, because it's just going to make me stressed unbelievably. Could you see them go with a guy like Peter Woods or a Caden McDonald? Could we see them select a Colton Hood here at this spot? Christian Miller, a Zion Young potentially. Just a lot of interesting options here. Maybe an Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Again, they already drafted Caleb Downs, so I would be a little bit shocked at that one, but let's just kind of see where they ultimately decide to go with this. But the Cowboys back up on the clock. This is the pick that they got from the Green Bay Packers when the Packers traded for Micah Parsons. And obviously getting Caleb Downs from the Ohio State earlier, where they ended up trading up 1 spot with the Miami Dolphins to guarantee themselves Caleb Downs. This has to be another defensive pick without a doubt. I have to imagine it's just which position they go. Could we see them take another secondary player? And we are just about to find out as the commissioner makes his way to the podium.
This one.
With the 23rd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Malachi Lawrence, defensive end.
Malachi Lawrence, the edge rusher from UCF. So they did go defense, but they go with the uber talented edge rusher from UCF. This guy is a pass rushing specialist. My oh my, his potential is massive. This could potentially be one of the best players from this draft if he can reach his ceiling where he's at. Just an excellent pass rusher, and this is someone that very easily comes in and replaces the role that Micah Parsons ultimately had departing. I am terrified because I know the Browns aren't going to select Keldrick Falk here because they have so many more needs elsewhere, but Malachi Lawrence, he tested unbelievable here at the Combine this year. 20 sacks in his college career. The production was without a doubt there. This year, he really took off to that next level. And getting a guy in Caleb Downs was an absolute huge pick for the Cowboys. And now getting Malachi Lawrence, who is really going to help this out. Again, talking about their defense. Quinnen Williams, who they traded for. They have Kenny Clark. They have Rashawn Gary. Now add Malachi Lawrence and Caleb Downs to that defense. This was a team that had such a weakness on the defense last year. They're starting to look so much better here at the moment. Browns with just under 4 minutes remaining here to make their selection. Again, teams only have 8 minutes for each of their selections this season. Talking about the Browns as they officially have the pick locked in, loaded, and ready to go. Obviously getting the the offensive line help earlier where they traded back down to 9 with the Chiefs and they had selected Spencer Fano. I wouldn't be shocked to see them add another offensive lineman, just say, hey, we have such a need at that position. A Caleb Lamu is right there. You have, another offensive lineman, as we talked about, Chase Bazantis. He's still on the board. Emmanuel Pregnon there. Both those two guys are guards. Lamu, you could end up sliding him into guard. Could you see them go with a wide receiver in Omar Cooper Jr. or a KC Concepcion? I know I had them in my mock draft earlier, taking a KC Concepcion at this point. You know, could we see them go with maybe a Denzel Boston? I think those are kind of the two likely picks from the three likely picks from the wide receiver spot. I don't think I see anyone else from that. Maybe not really like a Chris Ball at that point. But yeah, once this pick is made, Todd Monken, the new head coach for the Ravens, or pardon me, for the Browns, coming over from the Ravens, where he served as the team's offensive coordinator for the last couple of years. But yeah, as I was going to say, once this pick is made, my Chicago Bears are up on the board next, which means I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about them and what they are going to do. So unfortunately, Browns fans, I'm not really going to be talking about your next pick, mainly because I will give it its due diligence here. But yeah, obviously my team, the Bears, are up. Unless they ultimately make a trade, please make a trade and don't select Keldrick Falk. Maybe if Dylan Thielman is still on the board, that's where they go, and that has to be my hope. Gotta throw the Bears jersey quickly on because they are up next. Please, God, just don't let it be Keldrick Falk. Please, oh please, don't let him be the pick for the Bears. Oh, that would be painful. I would... Yeah, not... yeah. If... I'm just looking at the board the way that it is here at the moment. Whoever this pick happens to be, I think they're probably going to go with a wide receiver. I don't fully really know what I'm going to see. Again, offensive line would just be just another really smart move for this Browns team to make. And you don't know what you're going to do at the quarterback position because you drafted Dylan Gabriel last year in the 3rd round. You drafted Shedeur Sanders in the draft last year. You still have Deshaun Watson, who is on your team and could potentially be it. But no point in really wondering about this right now as the commissioner's making his way to the podium.
There you go, tackle first.
With the 24th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select KC Concepcion.
KC Concepcion, so a pick that I actually got right yet again. I think this is only the 3rd pick that I've gotten right from my last mock draft. Goes to the Cleveland Browns. Again, getting Spencer Fano and then drafting KC Concepcion. I love this pick for the Browns because you're giving yourself a true number 1 receiver. Had some drop issues in college, but I think just the upside for the Browns here with this pick is huge because he is so much fun to watch with the ball in his hands. I think all this kid needs to do is just get the jug machine in his house and he will be off and running. Okay. My Chicago Bears are on the clock. I personally would love them to trade this pick away. I would love to see them trade back into the early stages of the 2nd round and have someone come up and ultimately take this one away from them, and I'll give them more ammunition here in the 2nd round. I don't think they're going to do that because of some of the players that are still on the board. I would be really, really interested in a Jermod McCoy. We also have Caleb Lamu still on the board because I know there's been a lot of talk with offensive line at that left tackle spot. Caleb Lamu is without a doubt a left tackle here. I just don't feel like defense is necessarily, or offensive line is the best pick that could be made. Just under 2 minutes left here for the Bears to make this selection. It appears that the Bears have made a pick. The pick is in. Just don't let it be Keldrick Falk. Could it be Jermod McCoy? It very well could possibly be him. That's future planning. That's going, you know what, we had a ton of injuries to our corners. You know, Jalen Johnson, while he's still an elite corner, you know, was injured last year. Dylan Thieneman, the Bears need safeties. So he is without a doubt a player that they could pick here. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, you could see Peter Woods, Caden McDonald, Christian Miller is a player that they've been linked to and someone that they have really, really liked. Another guy that they've been linked to a ton is Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Texas Tech. Let's please just don't let it be Keldrick Falk. Please, please, please. Don't let it be Falk. I want someone else to be smarter than me and the other team to be smarter than me with Falk, because I don't know if I can do it. Last year, Colson Loveland was an absolute no-brainer of a pick. I think this was, without a doubt, a really, really solid pickup for them. But obviously, I think he was the offensive rookie of the year. Let's see. A lot of really, really good players still left on the board. Again, I like the idea of Jermod McCoy. I think Dylan Thieneman would be an absolute spectacular player for the Bears to ultimately get. Just need to see who they're going to grab here. And Peter Woods, again, you know, kind of fits that D-tackle role that the Bears are looking for. Caden McDonald, he's the best pure run stuffer here in the draft. I don't know. The pick is in. I would have rather them trade back, but I hate the fact that we're in a commercial break. I really just want this to be made. Could we get wacky and have Omar Cooper Jr. come? Let's see. ESPN is hosting the Super Bowl this year. But yeah, right now, little bit at a loss because I'm just waiting for my team to make the pick. The one player that I didn't want to see still left on the board is still left on the board. But luckily, you have a couple of guys that maybe a little bit of a shock that they're still left on the board. But the Bears war room appears to be good. And Dennis Allen appears to be on the phone chatting with them. So probably likely going to be a defensive pick. Just don't let it be Falk. I want to be wrong about Falk so badly. Okay, Kamish. Tell me who it's going to be.
Safeties. Yeah, McNeil, Warren, and Thieneman. Here's Roger Goodell.
With the 25th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Dylan Thieneman.
Oh, thank God. Dylan Thieneman going to the Chicago Bears. The Bears get the uber athletic safety out of Oregon. Thank God it's not Keldrick Falk. So, oh my. This. Oh, thank God. Yeah. I'm just incredibly happy that it's not Keldrick Falk, but this is a guy that you can match up all over the field. This is a guy that is going to be really, really good in run support. He is someone that I think has the ability to play all over the field. This is in my opinion, the second best safety in the NFL. This is someone that I really liked the Bears. I didn't think he was ever going to be here on the board. This is a guy that ran a 4.35 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. And this is, to me, just an absolute great pick for the Bears, getting the second best safety here in the draft. And the Bears need safeties. They didn't have a ton of safeties on the roster. Again, you lost pretty much all your starters. And with this being a really, really good safety draft, getting this level of a guy who I don't think is actually as far away in terms of talent from what we saw from Caleb Downs. We've seen the Houston Texans have made a trade up. So, but yeah, this guy very comparable to a Harrison Smith, but the Houston Texans have made the move forward. I just need to actually find them here. But yeah, great player. I'm very happy with this one. The Buffalo Bills are trading back, and the Texans are getting 26 and 91. Or that's what the we'll have to wait for that, because I think the actual thing is a little bit more glitched on that side of things, but we'll wait to see this. But yeah, this is I'm very happy with this player here for the Bears. This is kind of who I wanted. Well, let's listen in.
On the stage, the latest Chicago Bear introduced here at the draft.
Dylan, you're a Chicago Bear. What stands out most to you about your journey to becoming a first-round draft pick?
Never knew what kind of path I was going to take. I mean, started at Purdue, ended at Oregon, but I'm just extremely thankful to everyone that's been with me throughout the way and the journey I've gone on.
You grew up idolizing a safety and studying him a ton that people here know well in Troy Polamalu. What traits do you bring to the table that can make you the next best one for the Bears?
I think I'm very versatile, and I'm able to use my speed and play recognition to play fast and play aggressive.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is Dylan Thieneman. But here we have the trade for the Texans with the Bills. Hoping to see what the actual trade package was if they show it up here on the screen. Normally this is where I kind of check Twitter to get the exact details, but I wanted to hear what the newest Chicago Bear was ultimately saying here. These pick swaps. Do we know what the trade package is yet? Have to go back onto the Twitters. Oh, we're just going to hear the pick here.
Anderson to a massive deal. Will Anderson to a massive deal.
Let's see what the Texans ultimately do. Do they select an offensive lineman, or do they go with the screw it, no one else can
The
score?
Houston Texans select Keelan Rutledge, guard, Georgia Tech.
Keelan Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech, getting some protection for C.J. Stroud up front. Let's see. I just need to see ultimately what their trade packages were. We have a couple of trades to have to ultimately fill in. So, God. So the Texans are trading 28, 69, and 167, and then getting back 91. That is what that was. The Texans ultimately get Keelan Rutledge. And then we also have another trade up here on the board. Just need to see where this is going to go. Just trying to find the official package of what they ultimately had here. All right, so the 49ers are... and the Dolphins. So the 49ers are sending pick 27 and 138 to get 30 and 90. Okay, maybe I have to do it the other way around. Dolphins to the 49ers. So 27, 138, 30, and 90. Likely accept. Perfect. Boom. And now we are all caught up here at the moment. I believe so. Keelan Rutledge. Okay. So another quick trade that we see go off there. So Miami moving forward a couple of spots. Potentially go after who I have to imagine. And yeah, just have to respond to people. Multitasking. Sometimes I'm good at it. Sometimes I'm horrible at it. Right now I appear to be less than good at it. But yeah, Keelan Rutledge, the guard out of Texas Tech. I think that is a really, really smart pick by the Texans to guarantee themselves the offensive lineman to help protect C.J. Stroud. We saw what C.J. Stroud was at the end of the year, where he just looked so uncomfortable and frankly just didn't look all that good when playing. Again, they don't have offensive line help, so it was a little bit of a tough one, so they needed to get that offensive line help, and they ultimately did. Keelan Rutledge, someone that I kind of forgot about, was being talked about in this late first round stage. Miami now back up on the board. This is they initially had pick number 30, which was the one that they got from the Denver Broncos in the Jalen Waddle trade. Now they move up from 30 to 27. And again, their last pick ultimately was Caden Proctor, who was honestly probably the biggest shock of the night, in my opinion, for who was ultimately drafted. I'm wondering just where they're going to go. Are they looking at a guy like an Omar Cooper getting in front of the Houston Texans here? Are they looking at maybe a defensive lineman? Could they potentially be going after Jermod McCoy? That could be interesting. I know new head coach Jeff Hafley is a defensive-minded coach, and you're talking about trying to get some of that stellar defensive help in that secondary. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see ultimately kind of what is going to be the ultimate outcome But yeah, interesting move to see the Dolphins kind of move up a couple more picks, because it clearly must be a player that they're worried that the Bills were ultimately going to try to take after they ultimately moved down a couple of spots. Again, the two division rivals may be playing a little bit of chess and checkers here at the moment, but only with a handful more picks here for night number 1 of the 2026 NFL Draft. But the Dolphins move back forward a couple more picks. Who are they going to take?
With the 27th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Chris Johnson, defensive back.
Chris Johnson, the defensive back. So they were indeed going to get a corner, but it was not the one that many expected to potentially be here, as Jermod McCoy still up on the board. Chris Johnson out of San Diego is a very, very strong and physical corner, someone that I really, really enjoyed watching. And you know what? This has Jeff Hafley written all over it. A guy that necessarily didn't play the highest level of competition, but wherever he did, he basically just locked guys down. And this is just, again, I really think that this was a pick that was single-handedly made with the idea of, I'm a defensive-minded coach, get me a really, really good defender. Maybe this was the idea of getting in front of the Bills, thinking that that's where they were going to go. You get yourself on a very, very massive human being in Caden Proctor a little bit earlier. I mean, all the Dolphins have done is been making a handful of trades here tonight, and that's exactly where they go. I'm just going to continue to look at this, looking into the future for day number 2, before we start talking about the Kansas City Chiefs now back up on the board. Jets are going to kick things off here in night number 2, as the Patriots have ultimately made a trade up with the Buffalo Bills. Okay, so the Patriots have moved up, so we'll maybe have to wait until after this one, but the Patriots are moving up with the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills, I guess, are more than content with, or I should say the Bills are more than content with kind of moving back in this one, as maybe not necessarily players fully to their liking. We'll maybe have to get the official trade package in after the commissioner makes the announcement here for the next pick, as he's making his way out here onto the stage. So who are the Patriots gonna get?
So the Patriots with their first pick, the AFC champion Patriots on the clock. No more.
With the 28th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Caleb Lomu.
Caleb Lomu, tackle out of Utah. So they add some more offensive line to basically say, hey, we need help here. And I think that potentially could move the experiment of Will Campbell inside to guard to just kind of solidify everything here. So New England sends Buffalo pick 28, or pardon me, number 31 and 125 to get this deal done, and they select Caleb Lomu. Kansas City is now up on the clock unless some crazy trade happens here yet again, but we'll ultimately just have to see. But Caleb Lomu, again, I look at this and just basically say this is them saying Will Anderson, the experiment him at tackle last season was a fun experiment, but it's one that frankly we don't really want to repeat. We're going to slide him into guard, which was a conversation that a lot of people had for Will Campbell last season, and in my opinion this makes a ton of sense. Caleb Lomu started as a left tackle all 12 games last year, did not allow a sack, and this really solidifies the left side of that offensive line for the New England Patriots. And yeah, the two tackles out of Utah both end up going in the first round. Curious to see how long we've been live for here. 3.5 hours so far, but we are in the last 4 picks of this draft. The Kansas City Chiefs, their pick is in, and obviously they ended up drafting a corner in Mansour Delane with their first pick, trading up from 9 to 6 to ultimately get that. They sent a package of pick 9, 74, and 148 to the Browns to ultimately select this one. I'm looking at this right here. Could the Chiefs just double it up and say, hey, we liked both Mansour Delane and Jermod McCoy. Let's just go get both of them and just have 2 stellar corners for this season. But I could also see them potentially looking at a guy like a Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher. Could they go with a guy like Zion Young maybe, or a Peter or TJ Parker trying to get that? Could you add another player on the inside? Maybe, just maybe, as I'm flipping through, could we see a guy like Eli Stowers go off the board to the Chiefs? We know, or at least I was in conversation about them potentially trying to take a Kenyon Sadiq, where he ultimately went to the New York Jets. Kind of trying to see here at the moment what they're going to do and where they're going to go. Could this be a spot where we see an Omar Cooper Jr. go for the Kansas City Chiefs? Again, needing some more wide receiver help. You're in the last year of Rashee Rice, and might be a situation where you sit back and say, we're kind of over some of the antics that come with them. We might just simply sit back and say, yeah, we're more than comfortable allowing him to walk at the end of the year and let him be someone else's problem, and we're not going to have to pay that hefty price. Could it potentially be a guy like a Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington? Could we see them go Chris Bell, maybe a little bit off the board in terms of wide out? Chris Brazzell, Jeremy Bernard, a lot of different options there. The Chiefs, their offense, maybe this is where they go offensive line. Could potentially see that as well, trying to just get that little bit of extra help here. As we can see, offensive tackle is a position of need here for this Kansas City Chiefs team. Just trying to ultimately take a couple of looks here, tackle a little bit more of that pressing need. You're kind of stretching where you would see some of the tackles. I think all the really top end tackles are gone. Yeah, Caleb Tiernan is kind of the next best guy. Could you see Chase Pesontis, who has been someone who has been talked about going in the late end of the first round a handful throughout this year? Without a doubt. But yeah, without a doubt, an exciting opportunity here for this team. The Jets are actually trading back up into the first round, so we're going to see another trade. Who could this potentially be for? But yeah, the Jets are now back up on the board. We'll wait for after the Chiefs to kind of get that one situated and sorted. The Jets so far here in this draft have selected David Bailey, and they've also selected Kenyon Sadiq, the 2 first-round picks, and the Jets are back up on the board after this pick here by Kansas City. So San Francisco now holds the first pick in day number 2. We'll get you those numbers here in just a moment, but we'll wait for the commissioner to make the 29th pick for the Kansas City Chiefs, or the 29th pick in the draft, which is held by the Kansas City Chiefs. I wouldn't be shocked to see them go Omar Cooper Jr. here, but we'll just have to see.
With the 29th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson.
The pick is Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. A guy that very easily could have been a top 5 pick in this year's class, but just had such a rough year for Clemson, again, that entire Clemson team just had a absolutely miserable time last season. So we'll officially get the trade package here. The Jets send pick 33 and 179, and they're going to get pick 30. Fortunately, that's not going to be enough, so I'm going to have to ultimately maybe just try that one again, because they're saying it's close, but in real life, this is what happened. Not really liking it. Okay, so we're going to have to actually fib this a little bit for the 49ers. Actually, maybe I'd go with the 49ers trading this package to the Jets. That could potentially get it. So that. Boom. Okay, perfect. So the Jets are back up on the board as we have this one here. But yeah, Peter Woods is someone that I think is a really, really worthwhile pick here for this Kansas City Chiefs team. Someone who has the potential to be really, really special in the league. Just this last year just wasn't really good. Gets to play alongside Chris Jones, and they're really starting to build out that defense a little bit more. And yeah, again, Mansour Delane on the back end, Peter Woods up the middle. I think this is a really, really good pick here for the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Jets are back up on the clock. They have 3 first-round picks in next year's draft. They said, screw it, let's have 3 first-round picks in this year's draft as well. Maybe trying to get themselves a corner in Jermod McCoy. Maybe trying to go with a wide receiver here at this stage. I'm going to say this is for... I'm going to look at this and say it's Jermod McCoy, just because I think Aaron Glenn, like I talked about this at the start of the stream when talking about the Jets, is that you're going to want someone who can go out there and get yourself get your team some interceptions. And oh, sorry, just reading some reports there. But here comes the commissioner. I think this is going to be for Jermod McCoy.
When they had 3 in the first round, when Joe Douglas traded back in.
With the 30th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Omar Cooper Jr.
Okay, so I was wrong. They go with the wide receiver, so they are really starting to load up on the offensive side of the ball, getting Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper Jr. to go along with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and their new quarterback, Geno Smith. So David Bailey, the lone defensive player, this is giving whoever the quarterback is in 2027 a flurry of weapons to ultimately really, really work with. Omar Cooper, I think he was a very, very good player this year. I thought he was very, very fun. I thought he was an interesting guy to ultimately play with and deal with. And just unfortunately for him, I just don't know if he's kind of that superstar wide receiver. He's without a doubt going to be a phenomenal number 2 playing beside Garrett Wilson. I know on the screen they said he's a kind of Deebo Samuel-esque. I don't necessarily see quite Deebo Samuels in him, but adding this flurry of weapons is going to be very good. He is a polished route runner. I think that is very, very smart. You know, a physical yak guy. You know what? I don't necessarily hate the Deebo comparison the more that I think about it. But yeah, he had that unbelievable catch against Penn State this year. Was just such a magical one right there. But yeah, this is a very solid pick. But yeah, one of the things that I was reading is that the Steelers, when they were on the clock at pick 21, Tennessee Titans have now made a trade and are back up into the first round. So we're going to have to potentially see what this trade package is. So we're getting a handful of moves right here. So who is this going to be, and what is this trade package going to be? As I try to get Twitter cooperating with me. Titans do this. And who's up? Is it Buffalo? Who they're trading with? All right, so Tennessee. Okay, so the Bills trade pick 31, 69, and 165, and they get the Titans 35, 66, and 101. And so the Titans are now back on the clock, and the Bills kind of making some moves, trading back down. And I gotta wonder what the Titans are potentially thinking here. Again, the Titans going all the way back to the start, got Carnell Tate at pick number 4. Could this be a spot here for the Tennessee Titans where you just say, screw it, we're going to get ourselves another stellar wide receiver to pair with our already good one and just really blow up the board and get your young, talented quarterback in Cam Ward weapons to use? Because that Titans team, that offense, it was Cam Ward and everyone and nobody else. You get Carnell Tate, and if you can get another young weapon for him to play with, and kind of allow Cam Ward to grow with these young guys, that could be really good. And I could see them potentially looking at a Jadarian Price, the other running back from Notre Dame. I know there was a lot of talk about the Titans potentially taking Jeremiah Love. Obviously, he wasn't there for them to take at pick number 4. But interesting to see what the Titans are going to do after trading back up into the first round.
Pittsburgh, before the Titans pick, congratulations, you set a record for the first night of the draft. 320,000 people here tonight.
Wow.
Congratulations, Pittsburgh. Awesome. With the 31st pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Keldrick Falk.
Keldrick Falk goes to the Tennessee Titans after they trade up. Thank God he is off the board. I don't have to worry about my Chicago Bears even sniffing at this guy. And again, there's a lot of things to like about this player. He's 6'5", almost 270 pounds. Is just an athletic specimen. He's only 21 years old, so he's still really, really young. My problem is that he just doesn't get sacks. Like, this last year only had 2 sacks. The year prior to, he had 7, which is good, but I'm concerned at why you have such a large drop-off. Yes, you were playing for Auburn, and Auburn wasn't necessarily the greatest team out there, but I still get worried when a player has a really good year and then just completely falls off the map. This is not like Jadeveon Clowney, of where he was essentially being covered by 3 guys his last year at South Carolina, and only necessarily, I think it was only like 5 or 6 sacks during his final season. But this wasn't this case for Keldrick Falk. Goes to the Titans, and this is, I think, Robert Saleh basically going, get me a young edge rusher that I can build around and really kind of have for the future. And this was a massive trade that the Titans ultimately did, giving up pick 35, 66, and 101, and getting 31, 69, and 165. So kind of moving back and losing a couple of players there, but all in all, an interesting pick. But it does appear that the Seattle Seahawks have put in their spot here at the moment. Again, I'm just kind of scrolling through Twitter, just kind of looking at Bears stuff because I really like the idea. But yeah, it has been a very wacky and interesting first round here tonight. Again, we thought there was potentially going to be a lot more trades in the early stages, but it's definitely come at the later stage of the draft where we've seen a handful of these guys go off. So an interesting stat that I'm just reading, in 3 years of college football, in the 3 college football playoff games, new Bears safety Dylan Thieneman was targeted 7 times and gave up 6 receptions for 10 yards. He also had 21 tackles and 13 run stuffs in 3 college football playoff games. That is a hell of a great thing to see from the Bears' new safety. And we will kind of get to that point in a little bit. But yeah, what a interesting first round. The Seattle Seahawks are going to be the final pick here for night number 1. And then we're not immediately going to just drop off the stream. We're going to kind of take a look at some of the players still left on the board. We're not going to do a second round mock until the start of tomorrow's stream. But it is, without a doubt, been very fun, interesting. The Buffalo Bills, again, we just take a look at this. Buffalo Bills traded back, traded again, traded again, traded again. And they go back into round 3, collecting a handful more picks, actually getting themselves, I believe they now have themselves a early second rounder and an early third. Do they get that additional third round pick? I'm not really sure. But they're basically just moving up a bunch in this draft class. But while we wait for the Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl winning Seattle Seahawks, to make their pick, let's talk about round number 1 while we wait for the commissioner. Fernando Mendoza, first overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. That is something that we knew was going to happen. David Bailey, again, pretty much kind of knew that's what was going to happen. I think the commissioner is just about to make his way out on to the podium. Then we'll kind of finish this up. Jeremiah Love, I think kind of shockingly going to the Arizona Cardinals in a move that I think is very Las Vegas Raiders-esque from last season. They know they're not necessarily going to be a good team, but this guy's just too good to pass up on. And they look at it and go, man, he is just such a fun player. But I think the Seahawks right here, right now, this could very easily be a corner spot to potentially have. Maybe if there's a bunch of corners. Yeah, this is for the final pick in this year's draft. Let's send it over to the commissioner to ultimately end this one.
As we conclude round 1 of the 2026 NFL Draft, we're proud to continue recognizing our long-standing partnership with Make-A-Wish this World Wish Month. I'm thrilled to be joined by Dylan, a huge fan of the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, who bravely battled a brain tumor and is now a 2-time cancer survivor. This is a wish come true for Dylan, and a chance to take part in one of the most exciting moments in our league. Dylan, when you're ready, stage is yours.
What's going on with Pittsburgh? Yeah. I'm so excited to be here to represent the 12s. Oh, and the reigning Super Bowl champion, Seattle!
He is pumped up. I'm going to blow out the speakers. Who are the Seahawks going to take?
With the 32nd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Jadarian Price.
There it is.
Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame, goes to the Seahawks. This is pretty much just them saying, you know what? We ended up losing Kenneth Walker. Let's go find his replacement. We can get all the other stuff a little bit later, but if we wait till the end of the second round, there's no chance that we are getting this player here tonight. And that is it for night number 1 in the NFL draft for the 2026 edition. And yeah, this one's not much of a shock. I kind of also predicted this one right here as well. So yeah, again, only managed to gain a couple of right picks here tonight. But all in all, let's take a look here at this first round. Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders, David Bailey to the Jets, Jeremiah Love to the Cardinals, Carnell Tate to the Titans, Arvell Reese to the Giants, Mansour Delane to the Chiefs, who traded up with the Browns, Sonny Styles to the Commanders, Jordan Tyson to the Saints after trading back down, Spencer Fano to the Browns, Francis Mauigoa to the Giants. This was the pick that the Giants received for Dexter Lawrence with the Cincinnati Bengals. Dallas trades up 1 spot to get Caleb Banks. After trading back down 1 spot, the Dolphins shockingly, in my opinion, take Caden Proctor. The Rams just sit put and they draft Ty Simpson to be their heir apparent to Matthew Stafford. Say, we're not going to have another pick this high, so this is exactly where we're going to go. Vega Ioana, the Ravens draft pick. This was kind of something that we knew that they were going to be very interested in, going to add some offensive line help, so they get there. Ruben Bain finally comes off the board here at pick 15 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where, let's be honest, there's concerns there with the arm length, but if they hit, it is going to be a massive hit. Kenyon Sadiq to the Jets here at pick 16. Blake Miller goes off the board to the Lions. Caleb Banks, I think the biggest draft shock of the night, the D tackle from Florida, goes pick 18 to the Vikings. Monroe Freeling over to the Panthers, the tackle out of Georgia. Malachi Lemon was the pick, wide receiver out of USC, after the Eagles traded up to acquire him. Max, the tackle out of Arizona State. This pretty much just signals that Broderick Jones is not healthy and not okay. Akeem Mesidor, a little bit of a shock here to the Chargers. Again, we talked about them needing edge rushing help. That is a really solid pick there. Malachi Lawrence, the edge rusher from UCF. Again, this guy is really good. Dallas is having themselves a really sneakily good draft to start things out. Casey Concepcion to the Browns. Dylan Thieneman to my Chicago Bears. Kalen Rutledge, the guard, to the Texans after they traded back with... who did they trade back with? Eagles traded up, they traded up with the Buffalo Bills. Chris Johnson was the pick for Miami after Miami traded back up to give, or from with the 49ers to get this pick. Patriots then traded up with the Texans after they traded back down. Caleb Lomu, then Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, goes to the Chiefs. Omar Cooper Jr. to the Jets after they traded back in with the Buffalo Bills. And then we also saw Keldrick Falk go to the Tennessee Titans after they traded back into the first round after a massive trade back in. And then finally, to end off the night, we saw Jadarian Price go to the champion Seattle Seahawks, where they ultimately kind of pick kind of their replacement there. But taking a look here at round number 2, there's a handful of really talented players still on the board. Jermod McCoy falling here in this draft. I think maybe a little bit of a shock here at the moment. I thought even with the injury concerns that he had, he would still go in the first round. Now he's here in round number 2. going to be interesting to see where he ultimately lands at this point. Caden McDonald, this was a guy that I thought could potentially slip out of the first round, did. Colton Hood, Christian Miller, Brandon Cece, just a handful of really, really talented players. Top 10 tomorrow is going to be insanely interesting, as we have actually had a fair whack of trades throughout this draft, really changing up the board. But you know what? That's going to be it for this live stream, guys. Thank you all very much for hanging out. If you like this, make sure to, subscribe to the channel as we try to do a bunch of stuff. But this is Brendan saying peace.